Chapter 1266. Under the twisted and strange black withered tree, a group of Buddhist almighty figures sat together in a circle around the ancient Bodhi tree in the Garden of Solitude, which was also the tree that Fanwu Jia had seen just now. It was the sacred Bodhi tree that transcended life and death, embraced demons and Buddhas, fell in the demonic land of the present, but stood tall in the past in the Garden of Solitude. Life and death, withering and flourishing, demons and Buddhas, the past and the present were all intertwined together. Half of it was radiant and holy like Buddha, while the other half was twisted and withered like a demon. This extraordinary divine tree shone brightly, and a hazy shadow appeared under the tree. The shadow was blurry, and one could only see that it was a bodhisattva wearing a necklace, with 4 braids that reached his shoulders and a crown of 3 pearls on his head. His cheeks were plump and square, and he sat cross-legged on an octagonal lotus seat. His body was covered with golden flame patterns, and he carried an immeasurable amount of light on his back. His hands were placed on his kasaya, and even though his face was blurry, one could feel the faint smile on his face. It was as if it contained some kind of secret truth and the impermanence of the world. Under the Bodhi tree, there is the shadow of a bodhisattva listening to the lecture. The nameless old monk was secretly shocked. If this place is really like what that demon said, and the Garden of Solitude was given by the tree in the past, then which Buddha and Bodhisattva were listening to the lecture here and left this indestructible shadow behind? This Bodhisattva seemed to have heard the beauty of the Buddha's words, and he smiled, but at this moment, he left his shadow under the Bodhi tree. He left his shadow under the tree in the Garden of Solitude for who knows how many eons, but it was never erased by the echoes of the demon ancestors' demonic thoughts. This bodhisattva's attainment is very high, far higher than mine. The nameless old monk sighed. But I wonder if this bodhisattva has escaped from the disaster of the Garden of Solitude? The nameless old monk heard the obscenities and insults from the people of the demon sect behind him. The people of the demon sect were all full of energy, and their curses were very loud. The old monks, who were dozens of meters tall, silently chanted sutras. Their bodies shone with a subtle and pure Buddhist light. With the area where they were sitting as the center, it illuminated the entire space. However, outside this circle of light was boundless darkness. Countless ghosts were hiding in the darkness, and layers upon layers of pitch-black figures were wriggling and struggling like ghosts in the darkness. The entire demonic domain was shrouded in darkness. Like a black sea, countless dark shadows were the seawater. They flowed, surged, pervaded, squeezed together, and were isolated from the circle of light. Bald donkey! Shwetu King's voice came from the darkness. He was only a shadow in the darkness, and he was standing not far away. He laughed coldly and said, "Do you see that? The ones lying here are all your Buddhas. One of the revered one, is so ruthless. In any case, I was with him here." But after listening to slaughtering demon ancestors' words, he was silenced. A hot-tempered old monk's eyebrows twitched, and he chanted a little louder. His sea of consciousness was now filled with the malice of the demon sect's down monarchs. Their mockery, ridicule, and disdain became more and more vivid under the influence of his will. "I guess so," Ajati chuckled and said, "The corpses here, if we take them back and cremate them, we can produce at least 1,000 relics. That's enough for every Buddhist temple in the heavens to have a share. This is a holy object worthy of being worshipped. Just this alone makes this trip worth it, you bunch of bald donkeys." Not only that, when Sakya was cremated, there were more than 84,000 relics. Now, every famous temple in the heavens has one. It's a very high yield. I think so. There are so many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas here. They're all famous in the scriptures. How can they burn less than those non-famous Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the heavens? It's said that Delanchuo Temple invented a method of cremation. They only need to add glass, gold, coral, amber, clam, agate, lead tin, and so on. The output can be increased by 10 times. An old devil sneered in a despicable voice. Is this burning glass beads or relics? Ajadi laughed and said, Corpse God, you're a professional. Have you tried to make a relic corpse or something? Corpse God, who had turned into an ancient tree, said frankly, according to my research, the main factor affecting the sintering of relics is the 7 treasures embedded in the Buddhist golden body. These 7 treasures contain many materials that can be used to refine glass and water essence. In terms of alchemy, it's glass, because it's imbued with the energy and Buddhist essence of the golden body. These are all very good materials. Add to that the fact that the Buddhist golden body is used as fuel. It's very easy to refine divine objects that contain the bones and essence of almighty beings. These are relics. Later on, I colluded with Abbot Tuadu of Delanchuo Temple and secretly adjusted the ingredients for the cremation of the golden body. I researched a few pill recipes that are suitable for crystallization and glass. With the bones of the golden body as the main material and reasonable ingredients, the success rate of sintering relics is greatly increased. Moreover, the luster and appearance are even more beautiful. Not only did the quality not decrease, it actually increased. Because of this, Delanchuo Temple's production increased greatly, and they even exported to other temples. Unfortunately, he killed the donkey after it was no longer useful. He plotted against me during a transaction, but I didn't lose out. I took the opportunity to plot against him and stole a large amount of his golden body stock. I also obtained the method to refine corpses into pills and expanded our chasing corpse sex business. In the past, corpses could only be used to refine zombies. Now, not only can we refine corpses, we can also refine relics into pills and spiritual relics. This has increased the efficiency of the demonic path's resources and implemented the innovation and pioneering policies of the demonic path by Demon Ancestor River Styx. We were even praised by the Corpse Demon Dao Master and raised the ranking of our Chasing Corpse sect. Because the Dao relics, demonic relics, and martial relics made from the corpses of the Mystic Door's righteous path, itinerant cultivators, martial cultivators, and demonic cultivators, they don't have the Buddhist brand, and because other cultivators don't have the tradition of burning relics. Old Man Corpse God said proudly. Therefore, in order to sell in large quantities and stabilize the market, we even invented the technology of using the corpses of other cultivators to burn Buddhist relics. We produced counterfeit relics and released counterfeit products. Although the high-end market is still monopolized by the Nalanda Temple, the low-end relics on the 7th floor of the market are all produced by us Corpse Demon Clan. Don't be fooled by the fact that all the Buddhist temples in the heavens, no matter how big or small, worship the relics and remains of our seniors. In reality, who knows who burned them? It's fine if it's a cultivator from the Mystic Door. But if it's a senior of our demonic sect who knows about it, they would definitely forgive us for robbing their tombs after committing all sorts of evil deeds and pretending to be a Buddhist almighty in death. The most awesome one is still my successor, Corpse Gu Zi. He invented the technology of refining demon beast corpses into relics. Demon beasts are all bulky, durable, and cheap goods. This allowed us to break through the lower limit of our cost, and now we're preparing to attack the lowest end of the market. There are thousands of times more Buddhist believers than cultivators, so it's a bigger market. We can use the ultra-low-end relics to earn money from these people. On one hand, we can satisfy their faith, and on the other, we can open up another battlefield to compete with the Buddhist sect for resources. Those bald donkeys of the Buddhist sect, all of them talk empty words to cheat their believers of their money. So shameless. We imitate Buddhist artifacts, use the shell of Tantra to get into the market, sell relics, and specialize in the Buddhist market. At least we're using our products to exchange for money. I wonder how much more noble we are compared to them. Next, we're preparing to borrow the shell of a few ancient Buddhist temples and let a batch of disciples cultivate the demonic Buddha Tao, opening the door to the human world and building temples run by the disciples of the demonic Tao. We'll open up a Buddhist market around these temples, selling faith souvenirs, offerings, objects of Buddhas, and Buddhist relics to expand our demonic Tao. Clatter, clatter. Neat applause came from the darkness. The group of old devils was full of praise. The corpse herders did a great job. You have a bright future. Old corpse god is truly a talent of our demonic Tao. It's such a pity that he's trapped here as a tree. If we control this demonic land, won't we be able to get our hands on the high-end industry of relics? Ajati mumbled. Yuan Yu echoed. That's right. It's such a waste to let the Nalanda temple eat the fattest meat. Since the Buddhists don't eat meat, why not let us have it? With this batch of materials, we can burn even more high-end relics. Wouldn't it be great if we sell it to the Buddhists? So, we can't leave any of the skeletons here for the Buddhists. Since they're already here, let them take a few back home. Consider it a gift from the demonic Tao. Shuetu's leader said heroically. There are so many huge demonic creatures in the Blood Sea. We need to develop our own demonic Tao relics and Blood Sea relics. I think the bone demonic Tao already has white bone relics, right? Seeing white bone demon nod in confirmation, killing life sex leader encouraged, then we need to develop our own relic culture and spread our relic brand. Relics were originally sacred objects burned by the Buddhists, but they were obsessed with the sacred halo of relic tradition. They didn't dare break tradition and superstition to research how relics were made. This is the rigidity and stupidity of the Buddhists. Under the teachings of the River Styx ancestor, the Slaughter Demon ancestor, we focus on innovation, encourage invention, and get to the bottom of things. We have a devout spirit to research, to get to the bottom of things, and to trace back to the great Tao. We have a high level of curiosity and creativity. Here, I would like to criticize my fellow Taoists. Saraira is not a new thing, but a classic traditional thing. The Buddhists have been fooled by themselves, and we, the Devil Tao, can't see through this superstitious halo and didn't even settle down to study it. Fortunately, there was an outstanding leader in the demonic Tao, the corpse god old man. He was not afraid of the secular world and had a breakthrough thinking. He dared to innovate and boldly colluded with the Buddhist Holy Land. He even developed revolutionary technology to strengthen the Buddhists. This is the selfishness of our demonic Tao. If I could take advantage, I don't care if my fellow Taoists live or die. During the period when corpse-chasing sect colluded with Delanchuo Temple, I wonder how many fellow cultivators of the Devil Sect were scammed by the sudden increase in the production of Sariras. I wonder how many Buddhist monks rose in power because of the Sariras. If this was Buddhism, they would be considered traitors. But in our demonic Tao, we don't condemn the victors. Not only did we see the growth of the Buddhists, we also saw the infiltration of our demonic Tao values. Gains and losses in power are temporary. Only by implementing the selfishness of our demonic Tao and the values of our demonic Tao can we ensure the eternal prosperity of the demonic Tao. This is the path that our slaughter demon ancestor, River Styx, pointed out with great foresight. We support the demon ancestor, River Styx, and the values of the demonic Tao. The Shuetu king made an impromptu speech and spoke highly of the corpse sect's selfish behavior of harming others to benefit themselves. Immediately, thunderous applause rang out. Fan Wu Jie ridiculed the demonic path's strange worldview while secretly admiring this blood-soaked demon lord. For him to be able to become the commander-in-chief of the demonic path's allied forces with such an unremarkable status, he really did have some skill. Not to mention anything else, this speech had captured the core of the demonic Tao's theory. The core of the Saraira industrialization is the specialization of the product. Compared to the prehistoric times, the resources of the universe are almost depleted. This puts forward a requirement for the efficiency of our use of spiritual resources. Among them, the most important is the specialization of theory and specialization. That is, the specialization of alchemy and refining, professionalization, and close to the Tao. We need to summarize the alchemy and refining methods that are more in line with the great Tao. The corpse god's success lies in breaking through the halo of superstition on Saraira. He used the professional perspective of alchemy and refining to analyze the production of Saraira. This concept needs to be popularized. No resource is sacred, and to make a resource sacred is to ignore the great Tao contained within it. After so many years of worshipping Sarira, has no one really thought of a way to increase the production of Sarira? Some of the Buddhist sects have a shockingly high efficiency in burning relics. Later on, Old Man Corpse God researched some Buddhist techniques and found that the quality and quantity of relics produced by cultivating the golden body were extremely high. He annihilated a small sect and stole their golden body cultivation technique before he could research it. It turns out that this cultivation method produces golden bodies of low quality and combat power, but it is very suitable for the burning of Sarira. Therefore, they tricked some geniuses to cultivate this method. Because the quality of the golden bodies is very low, they are often stuck at a certain step, unable to break through. This way, they can cremate those cultivators after they die and produce large amounts of Sarira. They become rich overnight, and their foundation is especially deep. But do they dare to publicize the results of their research? Do they dare to use it on a large scale? On the one hand, they are even more vicious than us demonic Tao in framing their own people. The Sarira they burn is the crystallization of their own disciples' flesh and blood. Our demonic Tao only burns the corpses. Recycling, expanding the recycling of resources is beneficial to the development of a universe and beneficial to the ecology of the cultivation civilization. They directly burn their own people. On the other hand, they are conservative in the use of technology, hypocritically restricting the use of these technologies. Therefore, they become more and more vicious in private, but on the surface, they become more and more righteous. Hypocrites. Xuetu King eloquently criticized the hypocrisy and shamelessness of the Buddhist sects for a few hours. A group of demonic Tao elders turned these thoughts into ghosts and transmitted them to the Buddhist halo that brainwashed each other. The demonic Tao and the group combined, turning their own thoughts into ghosts and reverberating in the darkness. Gradually, the Buddhist sects were too busy brainwashing each other and erasing the thoughts of killing. Under the impact of the darkness, a flaw finally appeared in the Buddhist halo. An old monk jumped up and turned back to scold. "Nonsense, demonic bastard!" In an instant his voice disappeared. The two old monks sitting beside him suddenly felt that there was still a figure sitting in his position, but it was no longer chanting or speaking. Even the sound of breathing had disappeared. There was still a shadow, sitting in the position of the old monk who stood up, but there was not a trace of human aura around him. In the Buddhist halo, there was an additional cold body. The group of people chanting Buddhist scriptures seemed to have encountered a black hole. All the Buddhist halo and Sanskrit sounds disappeared. There was an existence there that did not speak, did not breathe, and was like a black hole, devouring all the light and Buddhist spirit. An old monk sitting beside him, who was chanting, couldn't help but turn his head and take a quick glance. He saw a corpse demon. Its golden body was covered in livor mortis, as if it was a strange corpse that had started to rot. Tears of blood flowed from the corner of its eyes, but there was a benevolent smile on its face. This was not the irascible old monk. This was a Buddha. The old monk suddenly understood something. He screamed in horror, letting out a miserable wail that did not seem human, and then stopped abruptly, as if someone had strangled his throat halfway through his scream. His scream made more people look over, and then in the circle of Buddhist halo, there were miserable wails coming one after another. The long howls from the mouth of the unknown creature did not stop. Fa Jing panicked. He knew that the plan of the demonic Tao's demonic monarchs had succeeded. They had finally brought something strange in the darkness to their side, and even that group of lawless demonic monarchs, who dared to merge into one and transform into one, seemed to be afraid of this ghostly thing. When it came in, the group of demonic Tao people no longer made a sound. They were afraid that the strange existence would be recalled to their midst. My fellow brothers, chant with me. Don't be distracted. Master Fajing roared. The group of Buddhist practitioners continued to chant the scriptures loudly under his leadership, ignoring everything around them. The Buddha's light that shone brightly again seemed to suppress this strange existence. Gradually, the howling became softer and softer, becoming fewer and fewer. But it still continued to happen. F.A. Jing suddenly lost the breath of a junior brother beside him, and a kind of speechless horror shrouded them. The nameless old monk beside F.A. Jing had to say, "Senior brother, we can't go on like this. My fellow brothers are not afraid of life and death. For us, life and death are normal. We have cultivated a Zen heart for tens of thousands of years. Can't we see through this body? What my fellow brothers are afraid of is the unknown in the darkness and the shaking of the Dharma. Therefore, in order to break out of this situation, we must see through that strange existence and see through that great terror. Senior brother, please allow me to turn around and take a look. Junior brother is confident that I can recite the name of this place and expose its origins. Junior brothers will no longer be afraid." F.A. Jing recalled the appearance of the nameless old monk. He was just a thin, ordinary old monk. There was really nothing outstanding along the way. Unexpectedly, when this inexplicable horror was about to befall him, he was the one who saw through the fear and ignorance. He saw through the truth of the Zen heart that subdued the fear of external demons. Master F.A. Jing put his palms together and sighed. Facing the strangeness and the darkness, I actually lost my composure. I can't see as clearly as junior brother. I'll have to trouble you, junior brother. Excellent, excellent, F.A. Jing said in disappointment. The body is like a Bodhi tree. The heart is like a mirror. Wipe it from time to time. Don't let dust fall on it. The sixth ancestor's wisdom is great. How can we compare? Without superior wisdom, it is better to be stupid. Since there is nothing, it is better to wipe the Zen heart from time to time. Senior brother, thank you for your guidance. The nameless old monk looked back and saw more than a dozen unfamiliar figures sitting in the Buddhist halo. Beside him, there was a six-tusked white elephant squatting at the side. Its body was mottled, and the originally white, jade-like skin had already revealed the rotten parts. Some of the rotten wounds could be seen, and the golden, divine bones could be seen. On the back of the white elephant sat a figure. He only saw a lianhua in his left arm. Sitting on the back of the white elephant, his right hand spread out and extended towards the ground. Although the six-tusked white elephant was contaminated by the aura of death, this bodhisattva dharma body was still clean and unhindered. Only that pair of eyes hid boundless devilishness. It was great terror, great might, great solemnity, but also great massacre, great destruction, great calamity. It was like a boundless void, like a bottomless abyss. The nameless old monk could still see the boundless sea of blood in his eyes. These eyes reflected the chaos of the universe, the past and the future, but he could not see himself. Samantabhadra, Bodhisattvas, God is dead. The nameless old man suddenly understood everything. He looked back and saw a sacred figure sitting in the Buddhist halo with a green lion on his back, a Tathagata with a wheel of light above his head like a sun, a bodhisattva with a strange ding-ting beast by his side, and a Vajra who could sever all worries. The nameless old man suddenly understood everything. This was the fief. Back then, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were contaminated by the demonic thoughts of the river Styx and had to sever their own bodies to return to peace. Only by severing their demonic bodies could they return to peace and not take away the ghost created by the demon ancestor. That was why there was Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva here, and why there were the corpses of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva. These were just the bodies that they had severed. However, even though the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas could return to peace, the thoughts they left behind would never be destroyed. It could be said that the bodies of the Buddhas left behind here were all incarnations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They were essentially no different from their original bodies and were a part of them. For this reason, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas could only use the mighty power of the revered one to seal their bodies so that they would not be contaminated. Therefore, the bodies here died one after another. Although they were not destroyed, they had been forgotten. However, they were thoughts. Back then, when the bodies of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas died, How could there not be a trace of negative thoughts that turned into ghosts and spread out? These thoughts of the Buddhas were hidden in the darkness. They were formed by the negative emotions of countless mighty beings, the fear, disgust, anger, and destruction before they died. They represented the information and the last evil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These thoughts were hidden in the thoughts of the river Styx and secretly echoed here, forming an inexplicable strangeness. It was the nemesis of all Buddhist cultivators. It represented the death of the Buddhas. The ghosts of the evil thoughts of the Buddhas were thoughts and information. They were not monsters in essence. However, the ghosts formed by the evil thoughts and some extremely strange information were more terrifying than any strange and terrifying existence. Even humans could cultivate to become devils. What more the ghosts that gathered all the evil thoughts and devil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Ghosts were purer than humans. The nameless old monk was dragged into the darkness by the inexplicable strangeness. He did not resist, nor could he resist. Even if he was the one sitting on the lotus platform, Dara, he was still powerless against this terrifying devil that specialized in restraining him. In the end, he calmly left behind a sentence. This thing is formed by the evil thoughts of the Buddhas. The way to escape from here lies with the revered one of the revered one of. Before he could finish his sentence, he was dragged into the darkness. Something flashed through Great Master Fajing's mind. He held the 3,000 wisdom beads in his hand and counted them one by one, sorting out some of the hidden and subtle clues along the way. Then, he used prajna wisdom to string them together into a complete clue. Every bit of the ancient secrets that he had seen and heard here, the confusing clues gradually came together and replayed the truth of what happened in the Garden of Solitude under the tree. Chapter 1267. Under the Bodhi Tree. Fajing suddenly raised his head and stared at the nameless bodhisattva, who had an inexplicable smile on his face, as if he was looking down on the impermanence of the world. He was suddenly enlightened. He understood the zen in the smile of the nameless bodhisattva, and instantly understood what the old monk meant by the only way out before he fell into the darkness. Heart to heart. Just as the old monks were concentrating on their meditation and chanting scriptures, trying to forget the horror around them, Fajing's words came into their ears. Under the Bodhi tree, its venerable Maha Kasyapa. Back then, Mahabrahma brought several followers to offer the golden Adumbra flower to the revered one. Each of them bowed to the revered one and retreated to one side. Then, the revered one picked up the golden Adumbra flower and raised his eyebrows to show everyone that they were a loss. Kasyapa broke into a smile. The revered one said, "I have the eyes of righteousness and the wonderful heart of nirvana. I will give my advice to you. You can protect me and continue to be with me." Mahabrahma was the Asura king, one of the 4 heavenly demon kings under River Styx. He led his followers to meet the revered one and offered the golden Adumbra flower, which naturally represented River Styx's attitude. Not long after, the ancestor River Styx personally came to the Bodhi tree to debate with the revered one in the lonely garden. As a result, the Bodhi tree fell into the ultimate and became a part of the Mahesvara. Fajing then realized that this place was indeed the Bodhi tree for the lonely garden. The sacred place where the Nalanda temple was located was also the Bodhi tree for the lonely garden. One was the sacred garden in the world, and the other was in Spirited Mountain. Back then, the revered one picked up the Adumbra flower presented by River Styx and signaled all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to be at a loss. Only Venerable Maha Kasyapa smiled and imprinted it under the Bodhi tree where he was. This smile represented the eyes of righteousness, the wonderful heart of nirvana, the wonderful heart of nirvana, and the subtle dharma. It was not written in words and was passed to outsiders. It was the Zen of Maha Kasyapa. However, at this moment, Fajing saw Venerable Maha Kasyapa's smile and was enlightened. It was as if Kasyapa's smile had been waiting for this day. The river Styx delivered the Adumbra flower, and then the Pure Land was destroyed. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas fell together, and their evil thoughts turned into Taos, leaving behind Buddhas and ghosts. When the revered one saw the flower, he understood its meaning, and when Maha Kasyapa saw the flower, he smiled. All of this was for today. He left behind the opportunity to enlighten the fated people, and left behind the only way out of this once Buddhist land, which was now a dead land. It was also the key to sealing the poltergeist ghosts. Master Fajing understood the mystery of Zen and couldn't help but cry. He bowed his head and kowtowed. Revered one is merciful. Kasyapa is merciful. In the past, the river Styx preached and left behind the evil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas here, turning them into Buddha ghosts and their evil bodies into Buddha bones. However, the evil thoughts of the river Styx reverberated in the land of sealed nothingness, turning the holy land of Buddhism into a devil's land. What about the revered one? Where was the thought left behind by the revered one the other side? How did the Buddha and the Bodhisattva sever the evil thoughts in the past? Fajing had long realized that the Diamond Sutra they heard when they first stepped into the Garden of Solitude was the voice left behind by the revered one. If they felt something was wrong here, they could naturally chant the Diamond Sutra to combine with the thought left behind by the revered one to guide them out of this devil's land and not be polluted by the evil thoughts of the demon ancestor in the devil's land. However, no one understood this at that time, and no one had the opportunity to do so, which led to their doom of being trapped here. The revered one still left them a second way out, which was the Kasyapa under the Bodhi tree. Under the guidance of the nameless old monk, Fajing finally understood the epiphany symbolized by the smile of Kasyapa. He realized that the revered one had also left behind a thought in the Garden of Solitude, which could enlighten them out of the devil's land, dissolve the evil thoughts, and even force the Buddha ghosts to retreat. Fajing said calmly, "In the past, the Kasyapa smiled and faced the revered one. So the direction the Kasyapa looked at is where the revered one is." The old monks raised their heads, put their palms together, and chanted the name of Buddha. First, they bowed respectfully to the Kasyapa, thanking the merciful revered one for leaving behind a smile and opening a way out for them. Then they looked up and saw the Kasyapa facing them. They sat in a circle, facing different directions, but no matter which direction they turned, the shadow left behind by the Kasyapa faced them and smiled. An old monk exclaimed, "Why is the revered one's eyes looking at me? I see it too. The revered one is looking at me." The group of old monks sitting in a circle exclaimed. They looked at Kasyapa, and Maha Kasyapa also looked at them. Reverend Fajing put one palm in front of his chest, with a faint sense of sadness and tranquility. There was an unconcealable sense of loss in his eyes. He said sadly, "So, the revered one has always been in my heart. It's funny that I once saw the demon ancestor everywhere, remembered that the Buddha ghosts were by my side, saw the darkness of the ghosts, but forgot. The Buddha has always been in our hearts. The revered one is in our hearts." So the Kasyapa looked at us with a smile. So he looked at me, and also at the Buddha. So the Buddha is in Spirited Mountain. Kasyapa, lend me your eyes. Fajing kowtowed and bowed. When he looked up again, he saw himself. His eyes had become the eyes of Kasyapa, and he smiled at the old monk sitting cross-legged before him. He wore a white robe, and the calm demeanor of the old monk had long been forgotten. Now, there was an indescribable fatigue and faint fear in his eyes. His brows were lowered, and his expression was full of sorrow. The Buddhist light on him was no longer glorious, and was dyed with a layer of dim yellow. A faint circle of light enveloped him. Behind him was endless darkness and surging poltergeist ghosts. The immeasurable light had long dimmed. Right now, this old monk was just a wisp of dim yellow light in the endless darkness. He was struggling weakly because of dusk. The darkness was getting closer and closer, and was about to drown the last remaining light. Fajing had never looked at himself like this before, and he suddenly said, "So this is me. Where's the Buddha?" At this moment, he looked at the source of the dim light. The light came from his heart, and on the light sat a Buddha. He was a Buddha whose face could not be seen clearly, and it was not even a golden body, nor was it a Dharma that shone with endless brilliance and illuminated the world. It was just a stone Buddha statue with a little spirituality. The blurry face used to be exquisite and lively, but now it was etched with lines, just like the Buddha statue that Fa Jing saw in the small temple where his master was when he was young. He chanted scriptures under this Buddha statue, and the Buddhist heart and Zen nature sprouted. Along the way, the old monk had long passed away. Fa Jing started from a nameless small temple in a lonely mountain ridge and walked to the various worlds. He saw more and more incredible Buddhist treasures and Dharma, and Buddha statues that contained countless mysterious Dharma and logos. He even became the mighty Bodhisattva in the scriptures. But today, at this moment, he finally knew that in his heart, the Buddha was still the broken stone statue in the small temple. No matter how many visualization diagrams of the Buddha he had seen in those precious scriptures, or even the Dharma of the Buddha personally drawn by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who had met the revered one, or the true face of the Buddha that contained countless mysteries. In his heart, it was still the first time he saw the Buddha. Fa Jing's face was already covered in tears. He could only see himself and the Buddha in his heart. The terrifying Buddha ghost beside him, the surging tide of darkness behind him, and the unpredictable group of devil monarchs of diabolism were all forgotten by him. Now, in his eyes, there was only one person and one Buddha. The person faced the Buddha, and the Buddha faced the person. Fa Jing knelt in front of the Buddha and worshipped the Buddha in his heart. Just like when he was still a little acolyte, the revered one placed his hand on the top of his head and said in a low voice, "The devil in your heart is here." Having said that, Fa Jing saw all his thoughts. Each thought rose and fell in his heart. He easily saw the rise and fall of his thoughts, the source and the essence. He saw himself clearly, but forgot what he saw at this moment. He saw his ugliness and holiness, desire and piety, evil thoughts and good thoughts, and saw his own nature and other thoughts. Fa Jing sighed softly and said in a low voice, "The Buddha is an devil." At this moment, the world view of the Buddha, transmitted by river Styx, appeared in his heart. These thoughts, concepts, understandings, and thoughts turned into countless twisted and horrifying devils surrounding his heart. This was the thought left behind by the Buddha. This thought was the Buddha, but it was also beyond the Buddha. This concept was another definition of the Buddha's thought defined by river Styx, devil. The revered one of the Buddha defined the Buddha ghosts as devils. This was a step further from river Styx's thoughts and understanding. He defined the external Buddha's thought as the Buddha ghosts and devils. Those who had Buddha's nature in their heart could revolve around the Buddha's thought and change their worldview. They could integrate into their heart, and the twisted nature was marked out, turning it into the appearance of the devil, which could be slashed by the sword of wisdom and the Buddha's heart. Under the suppression of the Buddha's thought, Fa Jing turned the Buddha ghosts into devils and slashed them out with his own Zen heart. Under the Bodhi tree, Fa Jing, who was surrounding venerable Kasyapa, suddenly stood up, leaving Fa Jing's corpse sitting on the ground. He was no longer trapped in the darkness. A green lamp was lit in his heart, shining in all directions. Wherever the infinite light shone, the darkness did not exist. He no longer existed for the Buddha ghosts, nor did he exist in the devil's soil. Any relationship with the Buddha and the devil's soil was left behind with the corpse. Then, one by one, the old monks stood up from the Bodhi tree and followed Reverend Fa Jing out of the devil's soil. However, not everyone had this kind of good fortune. Some old monks did not see the Buddha in their heart. Instead, they saw the evil thoughts of the Buddhas and the Buddha ghosts. They looked up and saw all their companions' corpses under the tree. They were almost scared out of their wits. Some stood up and ran frantically in the direction they came from, trying to escape from the devil's soil. Some sat paralyzed on the ground, letting the horrifying Buddha ghosts devour them. The demonic cultivators looked at the group of Buddhists sitting under the Bodhi tree. Some were pulled into the darkness by the horrifying existence. Some ran into the depths of the devil's soil, and some died just like that. Yuanyu was also dumbfounded for a while. After a long time, he slapped his thigh and cursed, "Turtle, let them escape again. They must have found something left behind by one of the revered one, and escaped." Shuetu also came to a sudden realization. He cursed in his heart, "Mother of asterisk her, these bald donkeys are so slippery, even the great freedom sky devil soil could let them escape. The one under the Bodhi tree is probably not Venerable Kasayapa. There must be some little secret that can help us get out of here. They're gone. What should we do?" The lifeless cult master prayed, "Slaughtering demon ancestor, you are our father. We are your dearest children. Father, please give us a way out and let us out." Yuanyu pulled Fan Wujie's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Now there are two ways to get out of here. Which one do you choose?" Fan Wujie had a dumbfounded look on his face. How many people from the Buddhism sect had died, and even with the help of the revered one of the world, only a portion of them managed to escape. Yet, Fan Wujie opened his mouth and said that there were two paths. Was this worthy of the sacrifices of so many people from the Buddhism sect? Yuanyu seemed to see the doubt in Fan Wujie's heart and sighed. "They are Buddhists, falling into the demon ancestors' territory. Of course they will die, and only if they are lucky enough to escape. We are the direct descendants of the demon ancestor. There is no need to go through so much trouble." Of the two paths I'm talking about, the first one is blooming flowers to see Buddha, which is the path that Buddhists use to escape. I saw clearly just now that those bald donkeys saw the revered one of the world from Venerable Kasayapa, and that was why they escaped. In a while, you will go and see Venerable Kasayapa. Mo Ku Kasayapa is the ancestor of Zen, and he is most particular about enlightenment. As long as you can understand your own Buddha nature, you can be like those bald donkeys, cut off a corpse, and free yourself, leaving behind the tainted thoughts of the demon ancestor, and leave the Pure Land. What about the second way? Fan Wujie expressed that he wanted to compare the two to see what the demon ancestors' conditions were like. The second way is simple. For us, as long as we integrate the demon ancestors' demonic thoughts into our great Tao, and then go up to the Buddha and shout, defining us as demons, we can transform into ghosts and turn into some kind of demon. Then we can subdue the demon and return to our original appearance. In my experience, the world should have been tainted long ago. Otherwise, how did the rumors of ghosts turning back into ghosts come about? But because of the thoughts of the few powerful beings in the world, no one can see the specter. If no one can see it, then it doesn't exist. So after the souls of everyone in this world dissipate, they no longer exist, and no one can prove whether or not there is a specter. After we leave, the specter's divine ability will turn into some kind of demon, and the specter's thoughts can no longer be observed. The demonic thoughts left by the demon ancestor and the specter's thoughts will turn into some kind of demon. I've even guessed what the devil that the poltergeist originally transformed into was. Yuanyu smiled confidently. It should be the Yin Demon Tao of the Ten Demon Tao. Outside the ultimate, the specter's thoughts can't be observed, so the ghosts that contain the demon ancestors' demonic thoughts turn into Yin demons. After Fan Wujie was exposed, he really found that the demonic nature of his thoughts, the demon ancestors' thoughts, had changed into another form and turned into two great divine abilities. Heaven-burning Yin demon immortal body, heaven resenting heart demon myriad transformations. Fan Wujie shuddered and asked in a low voice, in other words, as long as the Buddha seals the ghosts, turning them into Yin demons and heart demons, subduing them with the demon Tao, they can also escape from this demonic land. Then the specter created by the demon ancestor has already been sealed here by the powerful beings. Outside the demonic land, the specter's thoughts will no longer exist, and even the ghosts will turn into Yin demons and heart demons that are restrained by the righteous path. So this time, the demon ancestor's plan has failed. Yuanyu laughed coldly. Who knows? The specter's thoughts don't exist to us outside the ultimate. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist to Patriarch River Styx. Maybe this is Patriarch River Styx's original intention. The specter can't be seen, only the River Styx can. In this way, in the primordial times, all the souls, all the ghosts, and the specters that turn into specters after death. Who will they fall into? Fan Wu Jie thought deeper and felt even more horrified. Isn't this the love of all living beings in the primordial times? All the thoughts, information, and thoughts of all living beings won't be destroyed with death and will only fall into the hands of Patriarch River Styx. Let him control all the thoughts of all living beings. Yuan Yu laughed coldly. That's why there's a legend that when all living beings have distracting thoughts, a Yin demon will appear in the sea of blood. As long as the distracting thoughts are not destroyed, the Yin demon will not perish. That's why there are endless demons in the world. They are immortal, and they are the scariest foundation of the demon Tao. The demon ancestor of River Styx tried to control all the thoughts of all living beings and all the information of the universe. With such great ambition, will he die? Yuan Yu sighed. In name, the demon Tao has two demon ancestor, one more hateful than the other, so it's normal for him to die. Fan Wu Jie shivered. He didn't dare to think further. If the specter's thoughts were not destroyed, the specter would not be seen. If the world had really been tainted long ago, but all the truth had been sealed by the revered one and the three pure ones. If all the ghosts in the world really turned into specters after death, or even the more hidden and invisible Shi and Yi, then where did all the distracting thoughts and thoughts of all living beings in the world go? Was this the original intention of River Styx when he created the specter? To keep all living beings? To turn all living beings into demons? Fan Wu Jie still had a part of River Styx's thoughts in his consciousness. He tried to think from River Styx's point of view, and found that River Styx was really the kind of person who couldn't be understood at all, and whose thoughts were demonic and terrifying. Would he one day create a huge specter that contained the thoughts of all living beings that had existed in the primordial era, and let it devour him? In the end, it would turn into a demon of all living beings, an ocean of red dust, an ocean of information entropy, and become the source of the immortal demonic nature of the primordial era. If the demon ancestor of slaughter really did such a crazy thing, then all living beings would really become demons. As long as all living beings were not destroyed, the demon Tao would not perish. That was an invincible position. At this moment, Fan Wu Jie wasn't thinking with his own consciousness, but with River Styx's consciousness. When he finished thinking, before he could even feel fear, this thought inexplicably disappeared without a trace. River Styx stared at an invisible, fiendish diagram in the primordial universe. At this moment, an unfamiliar specter suddenly appeared in the fiendish diagram. At every moment, countless specters were born in the fiendish diagram. These were the specters that flowed into the fiendish diagram after the information carriers in the primordial universe were destroyed. However, this specter was rather special. It came from a person who was still alive. River Styx split a tiny bit of his attention to pay attention to this newly appeared specter. Then, he continued to stare at the fiendish diagram, at the demon ancestor of all beings that was slowly taking shape. River Styx's lips curled into a smile. Long time no see, old friend. In the ultimate, even without Yuan Yu revealing the secret, the group of Taoists of the demonic Tao studied for a long time and gradually came up with a way to change forms and escape from the land of sealed dreams. One of the demon monarchs accepted demon ancestors' idea and turned into a group of specters. He came before Kasyapa and used his specter body to enter the information left behind by Kasyapa. As expected, he saw the revered one of the world shouting, "Yin demon!" After receiving this blow and waking up, he realized that he had cultivated the sky-burning Yin demon invincible body. His state had turned into countless Yin demons, which were extremely difficult to deal with. When he used the secret demonic subduing technique to subdue the Yin demons and make them his own, he turned back into his original appearance and disappeared from the eyes of the demon monarchs of the demonic Tao. Thus, everyone began to cultivate Yin demons and heart demons. Out of nowhere, they gained two great magical powers that didn't involve any fundamental changes in themselves. Wasn't it wonderful? Yuan Yu naturally had a way. With the revered one of the world's thoughts, he cut off a corpse. Only Fan Wu Jie was a little conflicted. He refused to fall into the demonic Tao, but he was also worried that he would be enlightened by the Buddhists. In the end, he used the ideas of the demon ancestor and the Gautama Buddha to fight against each other to minimize the impact and escape from the land of sealed dreams. Chapter 1268. After leaving the strange and terrifying demonic land, Fan Wu Jie and the others finally understood why the will left behind by the World One to seal the demonic land was the only way out. The demonic land was on a different level from the normal world. There was no end to the demonic land. It was more like an illusion or a message. As they slowly saw the truth of the demonic land, they gradually delved deeper into it. Finally, this illusion turned into reality, trapping them inside. Now, after the revered one of the world's severe warning, Danglong was defined as an Yin demon, and the real sealed dreamland became an illusory mirage. After getting rid of this illusion, they only needed one step to step out of this world that was neither real nor illusory. Master Fajing was the first to take the first step. He turned around to look behind him, only to find that there was no trace of the demonic earth at all. Similarly, he could not see the path he had come from. Even the path back to the blood sea of calamity had disappeared. This was a path of no return. Fa Jing put his palms together and sighed. So the demonic land of the sealed domain is actually the will of the single tree for Lonely Garden. It's hard to tell the real from the real. Reality and illusion are two sides. We still fell for it. The group of demon monarchs followed closely behind. Burning-souled demon monarch said, with lingering guilt, "This godforsaken place is actually an illusory place." It scared me so much that I thought the demon ancestor had really moved the sacred place where the world venerables imparted Tao away. Yuan Yu shook his head. This is not an illusory place. The demon ancestor had indeed moved away the sacred place where the World One lived for 20 years. If we understand the single tree as a Yin demon, then this is obviously an illusion of an external demon. But if we accept the demon ancestor's understanding of the single tree, then it's hard to say which of the two single trees for Lonely Garden is real. Fan Wu Jie said with a strange expression, "Then of the two single trees for Lonely Garden, which one is real?" "Both of them are real." Yuan Yu sighed and said, "To great beings like the revered one of the world and the devil ancestor, anything unimaginable could happen. Not to mention 2 gibbons for the Garden of Solitude. Even if hundreds of primeval worlds and countless generations of primeval continents coexisted, it would not be inconceivable. Their realm has long surpassed the limits of our imagination. All the common sense in the world is useless against them, because common sense is defined by them. Reversing cause and effect, redefining concepts, and even tampering with the great Tao of the universe is as easy as eating and drinking to them. If it weren't for the fact that there's more than one powerful being in the world, then all living beings in the universe would just be toys in the hands of powerful beings. Is Dara really that terrifying?" Fan Wu Jie found it hard to understand. He said doubtfully, "But the Dara I've seen, even though Azura King Shimori is very powerful, he hasn't reached this level." Yuan Yu smiled but did not reply. Demons, filthy creatures, ambitious wolves. Master Fajing glared angrily at Dara. Behind him, the old monks stood in a row, all with murderous looks on their faces. They faintly blocked the escape route of the demonic cultivators, blocking them in front of the destructive tribulation tide. Compared to when they first entered the sinkhole, more than half of the old monks were gone. Many of them had been killed by the demon monarchs in the land of sealed cacao. If the demonic cultivators hadn't attracted the evil thoughts of all the Buddhas, they wouldn't have lost more than half of their people. Although the demonic cultivators had also lost some members, with all the demon monarchs below the Tao monarch level dead, and the old demon monarchs who had been assimilated in the land of sealed cacao, 2 demon monarchs failed to subdue the Yin demons. Instead, they were controlled by the Yin demons and turned into Yin demons. However, Both the Shwetu king and Ajati had a vague suspicion in their hearts. With the cunning and insidious nature of the demon monarchs, even if they seemed to be defeated, no one could be sure that they weren't acting. At least, it was a little strange that an old schemer like the corpse god could be so easily brainwashed by the murderous thoughts. Although it wasn't impossible, it was a kind of illusion that made people feel it was a little fake. Yuan Yu was sure that although the corpse god had indeed been assimilated by the land of sealed cacao, it definitely wasn't like what he had said. He hadn't been able to deny the murderous thoughts in time and had been assimilated by the murderous thoughts. The corpse god came from the corpse demon bloodline. He had created a shocking and amazing artifact like artificially burned relics, which was favored by the slaughter demon ancestor. It was strange no matter how one looked at it, for him to be so easily plotted against by the slaughter demon ancestor. Based on Yuan Yu's understanding of River Styx's evil tastes, the fake relics that the corpse god had created must be especially suitable for this young demon ancestor. With the demon ancestor's blessing, the corpse god wouldn't be so easily tricked. No matter how one looked at it, it felt like the corpse god had deliberately put himself in a hopeless situation. Yuan Yu saw a shocking transformation on the ancient tree that the old man corpse god had transformed into. He seemed to be transforming his life form, from a human to a tree, from life to death, from a ghost to a hoe, from a hoe to a devil, from a devil to a Buddha. Yuan Yu could see through the several major transformations that the old man corpse god was going to perform with the help of the almighty experts in the sealed land of Fiend Earth. First, he allowed the murderous thoughts to transform him, changing his life form into an ancient tree. Then, the ancient tree gradually withered and turned into a tree ghost. Then, the ghost body changed again and turned into a hoe ghost. Then, with the smile of Lord Kasyapa, he found the murderous thoughts of the revered one and was defined by the revered one as demon. With the smile of Lord Kasyapa, he was enlightened by the revered one's Buddhist nature and turned into the Buddhist Tao. Yuan Yu couldn't see the subsequent transformations. However, according to Yuan Yu's speculation, the corpse god was going to change his life form 9 times to open another path of Dara Dao. If Yuan Yu's guess was correct, after the corpse god received the favor of the slaughter demon ancestor, the ancestor River Styx passed on a forbidden technique of the demon Tao, the supreme secret technique of the demon Tao. Legend had it that when Goddess Hutu created the reincarnation to open a path for all living beings, the River Styx drove the sea of blood to drown the reincarnation and discuss the Tao with Goddess Hutu. They defined the reincarnation and added the ideology of the demon Tao to the reincarnation. At that time, the River Styx proposed the 9 questions of hell. Each question was a supreme secret technique of the demon Tao that involved the great secret of reincarnation. According to the legend, the 9 questions of hell were 9 flaws that involved the essence of reincarnation. In other words, they were the weak points of the concept of reincarnation. By mastering the 9 questions of hell, one could find the weak points of reincarnation and surpass reincarnation to achieve immortality. They would no longer be restricted by the netherworld and the 3 lives of reincarnation, reaching the terrifying Tao fruit of immortality. Each question was a different path of Dara Dao. However, because the 9 questions of hell directly attacked the weakest flaw of reincarnation, in other words, the 9 questions of hell was the 9 imperfections of reincarnation. If there were too many Dara that used the 9 questions of hell to achieve Tao, or even 9 of them, it might shake the foundation of the netherworld. Therefore, the netherworld was wary of it. If one wanted to cultivate the 9 great techniques of the 9 questions of hell, they would definitely suffer the backlash of the netherworld. The counterattack of reincarnation was extremely terrifying. It might even be cursed by the 12 witch gods. Even a heaven immortal like Dara wouldn't be able to get away with it. Not to mention a mere Tao lord that was preparing to achieve Dara Dao. Therefore, the 9 questions of hell was also a forbidden technique of the devil Tao. In a debate back then, Lady Hutu and the Patriarch of River Styx fought to a draw. The Patriarch of River Styx used the 9 questions of hell to determine the boundaries of reincarnation and won by a small move. However, according to some ridiculous rumors, the reason why the patriarch of River Styx could win by a small move in Lady Hoodoo's territory and occupy a land of the netherworld for the Blood Sea was because of the secret support of the three pure ones in the Buddhist sects. They suppressed reincarnation and restricted the authority of the primordial reincarnation. This kind of baseless, sinister, and malicious rumor would naturally not be acknowledged by the Buddhist sects, Taoist sects, or the Devil Tao. Even the shameless and malicious rumor-monger was suppressed by the patriarch of River Styx in the Blood Sea, never to be reincarnated. He received the retribution he deserved. As the saying goes, the Skynet is vast, but not leaky. Good and evil have their retribution. Yuan Yu didn't know much about the 9 questions of hell. This was because the more he knew, the more flaws and weaknesses he knew about reincarnation, and the easier it would be for him to take advantage of reincarnation. However, Yuan Yu happened to know a little about the question that the old man corpse god got. It wasn't much, just a rough idea. It was also the reason why the people of the underworld gave him a small lesson back then. The question that the old man corpse god got was, who is the true self in the reincarnation past life? In other words, it was the boundary of the individual in reincarnation. The true spirit was the boundary of the soul in reincarnation. This question was a variant of the ship of Theseus. It referred to the problem of how to define reincarnation in the endless changes of the self. The ship of Theseus talked about the definition of oneself. However, after Hutu created reincarnation, reincarnation had the problem of defining oneself. The definition of oneself was a philosophical problem, while the definition of one's existence in reincarnation was a problem of the laws of the world. Take the ship of Theseus as an example. River Styx proposed the paradox of identity and paradox of continuity. A ship could sail for hundreds of years on the sea, thanks to continuous maintenance and replacement of parts. As long as a piece of wood rotted, it would be replaced, and so on until all the functional parts were no longer the original ones. The question was the ship that was created in the end still the original ship of Theseus, or was it a completely different ship? If it wasn't the original ship, then at what point was it no longer the original ship? A cultivator who cultivated the soul would constantly replace the elements of his soul until all the elements of the soul were reconstructed. Was he still the original him? If he was, then his lifespan would be limited by reincarnation. After his lifespan ended, he would still be pulled into reincarnation. If he wasn't, then at what point was he a completely new individual? Hutu couldn't answer yes at all, because if she answered yes, it meant that there was no limit to the individuals defined by reincarnation, and the entire untainted land could be seen as a division of Pangu. If she answered yes, did it mean that all life in the untainted land was just a reconstruction of Pangu? One day, if Pangu didn't want to reincarnate, would it mean that the underworld would destroy the world? To control everything in the untainted land? This meant that the authority of reincarnation would expand infinitely, and it would be impossible to get the support of the great mediums. If not, then what limit would be reached to be considered a completely new individual? River Styx created a magical power for this, the 9-death reincarnation deceiving great spell. The cultivator could shed his own soul and the elements of existence, even a part of himself, just like shedding his skin. Every time he transformed, he replaced the components of his own existence. After 9 transformations, the cultivator would be unrecognizable. Other than the connection of karma, he would be a completely different individual from his past self. Then, here came the question for Hutu. Would such an individual be judged as a completely new individual by reincarnation? Was the transformation a change in the self, or was it an inheritance and continuation? Was such an individual the same and continued? Of course, this question was comprehensive. River Styx also created magical powers, such as the 3 lives reincarnation great spell. By constantly shedding and transforming himself, he could cultivate a person into 3 people. He also created the 3 corpses great spell. By continuously cutting off one's elements, emotions, desires, karma, and inherent attributes, he would become three corpses. In the end, he would only be left with the original self, which was like the original self. What about the existences who cultivated these strange magical powers? How would they be considered as individuals? The nine-death reincarnation deceiving great spell asked what boundary a person had to reach in order to be considered a completely new self. River Styx created several kinds of life to ask about reincarnation from this aspect. There was the reincarnation heavenly silkworm. Through continuous transformation, it lived one life after another, and through shedding its skin, it created a small reincarnation cycle. There was the nine changes dragon soul wormgrass. When a worm dies, it becomes a grass. When the grass grows, it becomes a worm. And when the worm becomes a dragon, it reincarnates continuously between the life forms of a dragon worm and a grass. They were all asking the same question. There were endless ways for life to continue. Some split themselves, some changed their form, and some molted into a new form. Then, what was reproduction? What was living? In other words, what was inheritance? What was continuation? We don't know what expression Lady Hoodoo had when faced with all these questions and paradoxes. We only know that after River Styx asked this question, the entire witch tribe besieged the Blood Sea for 3 periods. We only know that the cultivators who cultivated these strange magical powers would often encounter strange and ominous things from the depths of the netherworld. Every single one of them had died in an extremely unpeaceful manner. Their corpses had undergone bizarre changes, growing hair of various colors, flesh scales, and bone spikes. Most of the time, their corpses were still twitching even after tens of thousands of years. Sometimes, not even the suppressing talismans drawn by Grand Luo could suppress them, and not even Taoist monarchs could hold down their coffins. Even the blessed land, where the primeval phoenixes landed, could not bury them. Even the ancient heaven couldn't pardon them. If it didn't dare to bury them, they could only be cremated. The cremation burned fiercely. Strange blood flames and red lotuses appeared in the netherworld. Sometimes we could even see spider lilies in the netherworld in the fire. When they were burning, the corpses were still howling and emitting yellow smoke. The smoke reached the heaven, symbolizing the great evil in the world. When buried, there would be drought demons, and when cremated, there would be Ho. These were the great evil beasts in the world mentioned in the classic of Mountains and Seas. Sometimes the blood flames didn't burn through them even after several periods. Even after they were burned, they couldn't be buried. Wherever they were buried, it would become a place of extreme evil. Wherever the ashes were scattered, even the feng shui treasure land would become a place of great evil. Wind would blow from the netherworld and bring countless souls to dance on the grave. When it was almost over, his family said that the place where the grave was located often had many strange things for no reason, including but not limited to ghosts hitting the wall to the 18th level of hell. Black smoke billowed out, strange monsters grew, and all kinds of horrible ghosts appeared. These cases couldn't be investigated because it would touch upon a very terrifying primeval secret. It was the real ancient taboo. Lady Hutu held a grudge. Those who knew were all dead. Whether they died peacefully or not, the examples were as above. In the end, the result of the discussion was that the netherworld marked every living being with a true spirit mark. The true spirit mark represented the limit of reincarnation. If the true spirit didn't change, no matter how it changed, it would only change the outer outline of the soul. Once the true spirit changed, it would be a brand new individual. The true spirit represented the limit of the individual recognized by the netherworld and entered the netherworld to continue the next life. The true spirit was the label that the netherworld attached to every living being. This was the previous life that Lady Hutu and Patriarch River Styx revolved around in the netherworld. Which was the true self? The debate of this question. Of course, the true spirit couldn't solve all the problems of this question. This represented some loopholes that could bypass the netherworld. For example, some powerful demonic cultivators had the same strange thinking as Patriarch River Styx. I don't care which one the netherworld thinks is me. The one I recognize is me. Therefore, they created a substitute with a true spirit to replace them in the netherworld. They would then live their next life in a brand new form. However, the prerequisites for this kind of deceiving supernatural power were very harsh. First, they had to understand themselves. For this kind of continuation to exceed the definition of the reincarnation true spirit, that person had to be extremely crazy. They had to be as crazy as river Styx. The crazy netherworld didn't mind them using this loophole. Why bother with a crazy person? As for how Yuan Yu knew the meaning of this question, the 9 questions of the netherworld was a real taboo, knowing it would offend Lady Hutu and even the entire netherworld. This was because Yuan Yu was proficient in the art of transformation. Guess what was the highest realm of the art of transformation? It was to transform oneself into another person without any hidden dangers. One transformation, one life. It was nothing to deceive the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations, but it was amazing to deceive the netherworld and the netherworld. Yuan Yu vaguely guessed that the forbidden supernatural power that Old Man Corpse God had obtained should be the 9 deaths reincarnation, deceiving the heavens' great technique. It allowed one to continuously transform oneself, shed one's true spirit 9 times, deceiving the heaven reincarnation, and be reborn 9 times without changing. This allowed one to completely break away from the boundaries of the netherworld and achieve another kind of immortality. By exploiting the loopholes in the netherworld, one could prove the Tao through the netherworld. This was the Dara who achieved the Tao in a different way. In the myriad worlds, or even in the great desolation, cultivating this kind of supernatural power was courting death. The consequences could be seen from the previous unpeaceful deaths. Only when the netherworld no longer existed and the river Styx left the cultivators of the 9 questions of the netherworld with a slim chance of survival, could they avoid the curse of the netherworld and have a chance of succeeding in their revenge. Obviously, the only slim chance of survival for cultivating the 9 deaths reincarnation, deceiving the heavens' great technique, was the strange and terrifying demonic land of the sealed dreamland. Here, one could transform into 9 different life forms and undergo 9 shocking transformations to prove the Dara Tao. The 9th transformation should be carried out in the Dara heaven. After all, the Dara Tao that relied on the netherworld's reincarnation was still unstable. The only place in the world that could prove the Dara Tao outside was the eternal Dara heaven. After the 8 transformations, Old Man Corpse God would walk out of the sealed dreamland and head to the returning ruins, where the Dara heaven would undergo the final transformation. Indeed, a profound plan. Yuan Yu sighed with emotion, thinking back to his own experience of proving the Tao, and then looking at the other party's plan. Yuan Yu couldn't help but sigh. He was just a blind cat running into a dead mouse, and it was all due to some mysterious luck. Yuan Yu couldn't help but feel a little ashamed at this thought, but he quickly threw it to the back of his mind. After all, he still had the strength. It was just that it wasn't obvious. On this side, the Buddhas and devils were facing each other, and the atmosphere was very tense. Fan Wu Jia, on the other hand, saw a building wreckage in the distance. It seemed to be a collapsed palace, and it seemed to be an ancient heavenly palace that had collapsed for some unknown reason. From the wreckage of the palace, one could see that its outer wall seemed to be made of green jade condensed by dense, immortal energy. The polishing of the cosmic light and the destruction of the tribulation power could not damage this green jade wall at all, which showed how extraordinary it was. However, such an extraordinary palace had 2 pillars in front of it broken, tilting and collapsing. The wreckage pointed to the sky, and it was covered with scorch marks and weapon wounds. Fan Wu Jie's divine sense spread out, and he frowned and said, "Everyone, let's put down our previous grudges first. There is the aura of the Annihilation Devil disciples here." Great Master Fa Jing also shone the purple gold alms bowl and saw the faint destruction tribulation power in the void. He reached out and stopped the old monk behind him, saying in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Brothers, don't be in a hurry to settle the debt with the Devil Tao. It is more important to take down the Annihilation Devil disciples first. I don't know what method they used to bypass the strange seal dreamland, but they are one step ahead of us. Devil bastard. F.A. Jing glared at them fiercely. We will remember this debt first. When we face the Annihilation Devil disciples and the remnants of Ro, don't be a coward. The blood-soaked demon monarch scolded back. If a dog barks again, I'll beat the shit out of their infinite Ian's tribulation. Don't be a coward, bald dog. Umph. Great Master F.A. Jing snorted coldly, but he didn't bother to answer. Therefore, the two sides temporarily stopped fighting and split into two groups, heading towards the mysterious palace wreckage in the distance. Chapter 1269. Even though they were mentally prepared, the moment they saw the ruins of the palace, the demonic cultivators still showed a hint of well-hidden shock. There was no sun or moon in the endless ruins, but there was a hazy yellow glow to the place. It was like the last bit of light left behind by the setting sun. Beneath this dim yellow glow, one could only vaguely make out the outlines of the distant palace ruins. Fortunately, all of them were Tao Lords who stood at the very apex of the universe, which was why they weren't affected by the light and were able to see the ruins clearly. The tall palace had long been turned to dust, and only the broken walls were left on the ground, like the fangs of a dog. If it were not for the exquisite patterns and mysterious Tao patterns, many people would have thought it was just a pile of rubble. What really made everyone's expression change was the only remaining wall. Huge jade steps were piled up in a messy manner, and they were once the solid foundation of the palace. Where the remaining wall should be where the main hall of the heavenly palace was. Judging from the size of the foundation, when the main hall was complete, it should have occupied more than 100,000 miles. It was a magnificent heavenly palace that was comparable to the undulating mountains. But now it was just a boundless ruin. A broken board fell into the dust, half of it burned by some strange fire, leaving the other half in the wild grass. There were some divine characters left on the board, which allowed people to draw the complete outline of the divine character according to its aura. The Shuetu King was repairing the veins of the divine characters in the void. He crudely drew the strange divine characters, but every character seemed to have the Tao and body of a powerful, innate life form, like a god. The divine characters seemed to be the true form of an innate god, depicting an amazing divine power that was in harmony with the Tao of heaven and earth. The translucent palace. The Shuetu King read out the contents of the three divine characters, sending chills down Fan Wu Jie's spine. He said nervously, "The translucent palace. Where's this place? There are too many buildings called the translucent palace in the world, but for it to have such an aura, could it be the translucent palace of the ancient heaven's 72 throne halls?" The demon monarch of soul raised his hand and released a 9 underworld flame, which burned on the jade steps for a long time. When the fire stopped, there wasn't even a scorch mark on the jade steps. The demon monarch of soul was frightened. Is this really the ruins of the ancient heaven? The heaven disappeared inexplicably after the destruction of the primordial universe, but it was still a terrifying force that once ruled over the primordial universe, the symbol of the world's orthodoxy. In the entire realm sea, the disappearance of the heaven was the greatest mystery since the primordial universe was broken. Just from the mediocre veins of the heaven's remnant, several great forces of the heavens had emerged. The power of the complete of the celestial realm sea was unimaginable. Of the celestial realm. If Celestial Court could still raise a great army, they might be able to immediately sweep through realm sea, suppress. No, it should be suppress the various heavens, make all ghosts and monsters, monsters and monsters, all monsters and snakes kneel in submission. How could such a powerful heavenly court disappear inexplicably during the destruction of the untainted land? It was true that the destruction of the primordial world was a terrifying calamity, but in all the realms, there were countless people who could only be regarded as ants in front of the heaven. To put it nicely, they were just big ants. Small forces had survived, And now they were all putting on airs, pretending to be the holy lands and forbidden lands that had existed since the ancient times, the sects and sect that were the masterminds behind all the heavens. According to the tribulation of the shattering of the primordial world, that was actually the case. This small storm could not drown the heavenly courts, which had been through countless storms since the primordial world. Therefore, it was rumored that on the eve of the destruction of the primordial world, the heavenly court encountered a great calamity. Without the suppression of the heavenly court, the primordial world was broken. The cause and effect of these two things were reversed. It was not the destruction of the primordial world that led to the calamity of the heavenly court, but the calamity of the heavenly court that led to the destruction of the primordial world. Regarding the disappearance of the heavenly court, there were a few conjectures made by the historical scholars who had nothing better to do. The heavenly Tao became a spirit. Legend had it that because the heavenly Tao had operated for countless years, it had devoured countless great divine beings, giving birth to its own consciousness. In order to destroy the conscious heavenly Tao, the ancient heavenly court used all its strength to fight against the heavenly Tao. It shattered the primordial world, broke the heavenly Tao, and wiped out the newly born consciousness of the heavenly Tao. Because of this, the heavenly court's fate was broken, and it perished together with the heavenly Tao. The Emperor of Heaven's body was left behind to suppress the remains of the heavenly Tao. There was also the primordial war. Legend had it that the heavenly court fought against a mysterious force. Both sides fought until the primordial world collapsed, and they perished together. As for the mysterious force that fought against the heavenly court, there were many different opinions. There were remnants of the primordial demon court, connate life forms, ancestral gods, and the primordial witch tribe. There were even 3 religions that believed that the mystic door, Buddhism sect, and devil sect had joined forces to destroy the heavenly court that prevented them from ruling over the heavens. There was also the netherworld, which believed that the netherworld controlled reincarnation and hid it very well. In the end, it went against the heavens and perished together with the heavens and the earth. There were also rumors of foreign wars. It was said that the prehistoric universe had encountered a foreign universe, and a bitter war had broken out with the ruling divine court of that universe. As for which foreign universe it was, there were many different opinions. Some said it was a demonic universe. Some said it was the Saha world that Buddha had secretly opened, and some said it was a world of gods that used winged humans as their weapons of war. There was even the conspiracy of the devil world, the betrayal of the 4 imperial emperors, the internal strife of the heavenly court, the degradation of the heavens, and so on. Among them, the degradation of the heavens was the most interesting. The Taoist who proposed it believed that the primordial world was not broken and the heavenly court did not disappear. It was because all the existences in the heavens were now low-level life forms. The heavenly court felt that there were too many weak, barbaric, and stupid, low-level life forms in the primordial world. Therefore, they created a heavenly world and exiled the low-level life forms there. Only the most outstanding ones were selected and allowed to ascend to the primordial world and be ruled by the heavenly court. To put it bluntly, everyone in the heavenly realm sea was trash and was thrown into a trash-can universe by the heavenly court to avoid polluting the primordial world, which was rich with spiritual chi. There was evidence for this theory. The evidence was the disappearance of the connate life forms and the fading traces of Dara after the primordial world was broken. After the primordial world was broken, too many great existences disappeared. Those connate gods and devils who captured the sun and the moon, those tyrannical connate life forms, and those ancient races and experts, all disappeared without a trace. In the heavenly world, there is a group of believers who believed in this theory. They studied day and night on how to ascend to the primordial world. This is not the ancient heavenly court. The Shuetu king denied immediately. He said solemnly, "The godly script on this board is the primordial demon script. The primordial demon script is what we call it later. In the primordial era, this script was the script of the gods. The demon race called it the primordial godly script. Every primordial godly script is the manifestation of the great Tao symbolized by the connate life forms. For example, this Connect script is one of the godly scripts mastered by the primordial celestial fox clan. It symbolizes the power of godly connection. Connection is the connection with godly connection. Those who are inspired by godly connection are called Connect. The Fox clan is very prone to inspiration. They can communicate with others in their dreams, or they're born with intelligence, or they can easily borrow the power of will. The primordial demon script next to the Connect script looks like a divine bird flapping its wings and dancing. It means brightness. It is the godly script of the primordial divine beast, the connate life form, the bright bird. It symbolizes that the bright bird repels evil beasts and suppresses filthy evil Tao. It makes the sun and the moon rise high, and the world is bright. Brightness means tranquility without any filth. The last primordial demon script is like a mountain, which is the location of the earth vein. It is a godly script formed naturally by the mountains and rivers. It is also one of the godly scripts mastered by the primordial dragon clan. The primordial dragon clan and the dragon clan of the four seas could only hide in the water vein, leaving only the divine right in the water. At its peak, the primordial dragon clan ruled over half of the primordial world. All the mountains and rivers in the world were controlled by the dragon god. The ancestor of the dragon must be a high mountain. The top is the dragon tower, and the flat is the treasure hall. This primordial demon script is as solid as the treasure hall. It is unchangeable, flat, and sturdy. It is the word hall, the hall of enlightenment, according to the meaning of the primordial demon script, is to suppress the primordial world and make the world bright. The treasure hall, which is used to communicate with the gods and humans, is responsible for suppressing evil and contacting the lower realm. It is an institution that exists as a window for the heavenly court to rule the lower realm and communicate with all living beings. The Shui-Tu King's attainments in the primordial demon script are indeed profound. Yuan Yu exclaimed, "Many people here probably don't even know the existence of the primordial demon script. Although I have heard a little about it, I only know a little about it. I only know that it exists, but I can't recognize it in person. This Hall of Enlightenment uses the primordial demon script as a book. This heavenly palace should be the remains of the primordial demon court. The primordial demon court, or the former heavenly court, it is said that it was destroyed in the war with the ancestor of sorcery." Someone's thoughts were in turmoil, and he could not help but sigh. However, Ajadi sneered and retorted, "In the primordial demon court and the sorcerer tribe perished together. Then, in the ancient times, the heavenly court took the opportunity to rise. The Emperor of Heaven ruled the primordial world." Can you say that? Later, a part of the ancient sorcery cult joined our devil path. Everyone has some understanding of the sorcery cult. Let me ask you, how did the ancestor of sorcery cult become the orthodox great god of the primordial heavenly court? Why did the four seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter sacrifice still worship the primordial sorcerer god? And the primordial divine court was demoted to the primordial demon court? It was not even recognized as the orthodox heavenly court. Why did the Emperor of Heaven rise in the ancient times after the great sorcery and demon war? Could it be that his throne was given by the sorcerer tribe? The Emperor of Heaven's bearing. How can you believe such a thing? Back then, when Tung Wang Kung led the immortals, didn't he also have the bearing of the Emperor of Heaven? Then, why was he killed by the demon Emperor of Heaven? At that time, the demon emperor was also called the Emperor of Heaven. Why was he stripped of his throne and was only called the demon emperor? Let me see. The demon emperor was most likely killed by the Emperor of Heaven. At that time, the Emperor of Heaven did not ascend to the throne. It was probably because his name was not right and his words did not sound right. He had to reincarnate and sweep the primordial world with a mighty momentum and then ascend to the throne. The demon monarch of burning soul could not help but refute. Nonsense. If the demon emperor was killed by the Emperor of Heaven, then why didn't he ascend to the throne with the momentum of killing the demon emperor and sweep the world? Why bother to reincarnate again? Wouldn't killing a demon emperor and becoming the emperor be even more famous and more legitimate? With his hands behind his back, Ajadi said, "According to my research, the Emperor of Heaven could not ascend to the throne at that time because of his awkward status." Ridiculous. What kind of status did the Emperor of Heaven have? How powerful was he to be able to kill the demon emperor? Why would he say that his identity was awkward? Could it be that the Emperor of Heaven was actually a subject of the demon emperor? Killing the demon emperor was an offense and a plot to usurp the throne. So he hid his identity and skipped this part? Someone among the old demons could not help but refute. Ajadi sneered. How honorable is the Emperor of Heaven? How could he be a subject of the demon emperor? At that time, during the Great Wizard and Demon War, those who could fight the demon emperor could not be in the demon court. They could only be in the wizard tribe. So the Emperor of Heaven might be a wizard ancestor. Bullsh asterisk T. If the Emperor of Heaven was a wizard, why didn't he take this opportunity to rebuild the supreme wizard court? Instead, he reincarnated and rebuilt the heavenly court. Isn't that like taking off his pants to fart? The wizard tribe has many political parties. There are as many as 12 wizard ancestors, and they are all equal in status. If the wizard court was established, who would be the Emperor of Heaven? Wouldn't the Emperor of Heaven have 11 brothers and sisters who are equal to him? Ajadi said mockingly, the 12 wizard ancestors are all equally famous. How could it be easy to distinguish who is superior? The Emperor of Heaven has always been wise, so he pulled out a group of forces from the wizard tribe and established his own sect. In the end, he swept through the world and ascended to the throne. He completely cut himself off from the past, and even the great merit of killing the demon emperor was hidden. I wonder how much smarter he is than you. You are joking and talking nonsense. You want to apologize to all living beings in the world. Someone among the old demons stepped forward angrily. Everyone hurriedly pulled the two of them apart. Yuanyu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. As he pulled the man's belt, he secretly glanced at Ajadi. He was afraid. Could these things be said so casually? And this guy's guess was damn accurate. These things were actually not secrets. It was just that the identities of the two parties involved were too high and noble, so no one in the know dared to say anything. Only those who didn't know the inside story would dare to be so bold and speak so casually. Little did they know that both parties were still alive. If I hear you spouting nonsense down there, I can easily crush you to death. Forget about a puny Dowlord. Even you would have no choice but to obediently die once at a critical juncture like this and let the big shot vent his anger. The Shwetu king said in a low voice, "There's no point in fighting here. The ruins of the primordial demon court are right in front of us. Won't we know any secrets once we enter? Besides, the primordial demon court has fallen for a long time, and those great divine powers back then should no longer care. There won't be any fatal secrets. With the wealth of the heavenly court, anything that leaks out from the cracks of their fingers is enough to feed us." Also, that group of bald donkeys took another path. It seems that they entered from the side hall. Also, Ro's remaining corpses ran ahead of us. If we were any later, they would have picked up all the benefits. That's right. Yuanyu slapped his thigh and said, those Ro remnants were able to bypass the dangerous sealed dream demonic soil and enter the ruins of the demon court. This means that there must be something inside that they want. That must be something good. We can't let these destruction demon disciples succeed and endanger the heavenly realms. Yes. In order to protect the heavenly realm sea, we must not let the Ro remnants succeed. Not even if it falls into the hands of those bald donkeys. Get out of the way. Let me see which way we can enter. The group walked towards the main hall. Just as they approached the main hall, they saw the horizontal board that had fallen into the dust and weeds. Behind the charred black and silent part of the divine text, there were 1 or 2 spots of emerald green sprouting. The spots of emerald green carried a soul-stirring divinity, and behind the charred board, it was like freshly washed jade. The primordial demon text written on the horizontal board was burned by the divine fire, and its divinity was extinguished, turning black. However, there was life sprouting behind it, full of divinity and soul-stirring vitality. It felt like it was not a little green sprout, but the recovery of a universe. Walking here, everyone could not hide their amazement. Not to mention how far life was from germinating in the ultimate. In fact, life here was quite a distance from normal. In the ultimate, they had never seen normal life. It was either twisted or strange. This was the ruins of a celestial palace. The damaged plaque of the archaic demon court's throne hall, coupled with the devastation of war and the destruction of this place, the divine wood that was made into the plaque, after being burned by an unknown divine fire, actually sprouted. The primordial demon court existed in such a long time that it was impossible to connect these two extreme, contrasting things like the sprout of the divine tree. Am I seeing things? Someone rubbed his eyes. For a Tao Lord to do such a thing, it meant that he really suspected that he was seeing things. Why is there a divine tree sprouting? Could this not be the ultimate forbidden land, but some divine land, immortal realm? What kind of divine wooden board is this? How can it germinate after being silent for eons? Fan Wu Jie turned around and saw Yuan Yu searching around as well. He was speechless and said, "Old Taoist, what are you doing now?" Yuan Yu whispered, "Lower your voice. I'm looking for the triple brilliance, godly water. Without it, how did this horizontal board grow on the ground?" Legend has it that when the primordial Lord of Heaven's purified bottle fell on the ground, it sprouted within a few days. I thought it was a rumor made up by the heavens against Guanyin Bodhisattva. Who would have thought? This is actually true. Ajati jogged over and prepared to collect the horizontal board. However, he could not get close to the horizontal board at all. Ajati used a few escape techniques, but his speed in the void was like that of an ant crawling. He desperately circulated his arcane energy, and with great difficulty, he managed to retreat. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "This thing is not a divine tree, but the embryonic form of a world, and that sprout is a budding world. Why did the primordial demon court hang this thing at the door?" Yuan Yu's eyes flashed. "This is the builder tree. This board is a divine wood cut from the divine tree of the builder tree. The builder tree is also known as the world tree. It can support a world. The space-time inside is definitely distorted. It seems that the size of the Hall of Enlightenment is larger than we imagined. I have never heard of the builder tree being reborn from cuttings. When the builder tree was made into a horizontal board and suppressed in the Hall of Enlightenment, it was definitely dead. For it to sprout now, it seems strange no matter how I look at it. I feel like there is something going on here." Yuan Yu said in a low voice. "The primordial demon court might not have fallen here for a simple reason. Perhaps someone has reused the primordial demon court. Who has the guts to live in the ruins of the celestial heavens? Aren't they afraid of shortening their lifespan?" Fan Wu Jie clicked his tongue. Yuan Yu glanced at him and asked, "What do you think? Which garden did we just come out from?" "You mean?" Fan Wu Jie cautiously pointed at his head. "In the demonic earth of the sealed domain, Old Man Corpse God said that it was the Garden of Solitude, and also the Sky of Freedom. The Sky of Freedom is the place where the demon ancestor of slaughter created life and searched for good fortune. Old Man Corpse God is not a simple person, and the things he knows are not simple either. We escaped from the Garden of Solitude, but who said that we escaped from the Sky of Freedom? The Garden of Solitude can be the Sky of Freedom. Why can't the primordial demon court be the Sky of Freedom? The demon ancestor used the Garden of Buddha to raise chi, and used the palace of the demon emperor to do other things. He really has a wide range of hobbies. How many worlds are there in the Sky of Freedom?" Fan Wu Jie looked at the bottomless door of the Hall of Enlightenment, and he couldn't help but feel his legs turn to jelly. Who knew what the demon ancestor was raising in the back? "Demon ancestor, can't you have some other hobbies?" "River Styx, sorry, this old man likes to raise birds and insects. Raising small animals is my hobby." With the style of the demon ancestor, I'm afraid that even the place where Ro is sealed will be used. Yuan Yu sighed and said, "Even if we go further into the forbidden area where demon ancestor is sealed Ro, I won't be surprised. Can't you say something nice?" Fan Wu Jie sighed and said, looking at the vast primordial demon court in front of him. Fan Wu Jie's eyes no longer had the mighty and domineering look from before. Instead, he was reduced to a small vegetable garden in the backyard of the demon ancestor of slaughter. Fan Wu Jie inexplicably thought of an old man who looked like an old farmer, picking up things that people didn't want before the world was broken. What Buddha's garden? The backyard of the Emperor of Heaven. The palace of the former Emperor of Heaven. The courtyard where the three pure ones stayed. When they found a ruin, they would put it away, wash it in the ultimate ruins, and then hide it, raising some small pets, small animals, and so on. Thinking of this, the style seemed to be inexplicably a little off. And in Yuan Yu's imagination, the young River Styx was holding two swords, like a tyrannical street tiger, blocking the door of the Buddha ancestor and the Tao Lord, with a cold face against the two swords, extorting and forcibly taking people's things, and then hiding in the ultimate ruins. With the help of the Blood Sea, he created all kinds of strange and bizarre monsters, preparing to counterattack the world and dominate the world. Wearing a white coat, River Styx, who was devoutly researching in a laboratory of the Sky of Freedom, scratched his neck and continued to look down at the Blood Sea petri dish. Chapter 1270. Poyamakuo led the Azura tribe deep into the Hall of Enlightenment. They all had many wounds on their bodies, and they had even lost two people. Poyamakuo's aura was much weaker than when she was in Poyamakuo's heart and had recovered to her peak with the help of Dara's divine treasure. Along the way, they had experienced countless dangers and fights. Carefree heaven, the ruins of the Hall of Enlightenment. Poyamakuo's tone was complicated. The ruins of the Hall of Enlightenment were modified by the Slaughter Demon ancestor to contain the species of the Blood Sea that the great divine arts didn't want. This was the breeding ground for countless strange monsters. The River Styx demon ancestor had a strange and fierce temperament. In the past, he created the Azura tribe, but abandoned us because we weren't the seeds of the Devil Tao that he had envisioned. Back then, the Chaos demon ancestor's spirit and body were split into two. The evil thoughts and evil energy of the Chaos Devil God became the Road demon ancestor, and Pangu's essence blood, which was contaminated by the devil energy, turned into the Blood Sea. Originally, when the Road demon ancestor entered the Blood Sea, it would give birth to the one and only supreme demon ancestor of the Devil Tao, the Chaos demon ancestor. However, Pangu's essence blood was blessed by Pangu and gave birth to a consciousness. After receiving a trace of Pangu's water ancestor's dharma, the River Styx demon ancestor was born. He cut out the impurities in his body that were contaminated by the Chaos Devil God and gave birth to the Azura tribe. Therefore, the Azura tribe was despised by the River Styx demon ancestor. The River Styx demon ancestor didn't think that we, who were contaminated by the Chaos Devil God, were the seeds of the Devil Tao that he wanted to create. Therefore, even though we were born from the Blood Sea, he still preferred the human race. He thought that the human race was the natural seed of the Devil Tao and was qualified to develop his orthodoxy. However, we were just the remains of the Chaos Devil God, the orphans of the old Devil Tao. When the Azura tribe was at its most lost, it was the Road demon ancestor who took us in. He was born from the spirit of the Chaos demon ancestor and inherited the evil thoughts and resentment of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God. The few great Azura kings of the Azura tribe were all born from his impurities. They were his natural deployment. Therefore, the king chose to follow the Road demon ancestor in an attempt to occupy the Pangi universe and create the era of the Chaos clan. Unfortunately, after the fall of Pangu, he left behind a contingency plan that allowed the River Styx demon ancestor to be born and create the new Devil Tao of the Pangi universe. The plan of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God fell through. The one and only demon ancestor who was originally expected to inherit the legacy of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God, the Chaos demon ancestor, was divided into two by the spirit and the body into the Road demon ancestor and the River Styx demon ancestor. After the River Styx demon ancestor was born, He cut off the impurities of the Chaos Devil God and turned them into the Azura tribe. He cut off the legacy of the Chaos Demon ancestor and thought that he inherited the Panga clan. After the creation of the world, the strength of the Road Demon ancestor was not enough to suppress the Panga clan. This allowed the 3 pure ones, the 12 witches, and the ancient gods to gradually grow. This led to the premature end of our era. Piamoko said fiercely. Before the destruction of the Chaos world, the Road Demon ancestor sensed the secrets of heaven and knew that the last opportunity of the Chaos Devil Tao was about to arrive. When the Chaos world was destroyed, the Road Demon ancestor could use the karma of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God and confirm the oath and curse of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God before they died to prove the great Tao of destruction. With the help of the Chaos world's shattered destiny, he could transform into the Destruction Devil God and completely destroy the Panga universe. Then, he would open the universe of our Devil Tao on the remains of the Chaos world. Unfortunately, the River Styx demon ancestor also predicted this. Before the Chaos world was destroyed, he used the body of the ultimate demon god as bait to lure the Road Demon ancestor into the ultimate sea. He suppressed the Road Demon ancestor and used the ultimate to seal the Destruction Devil God. In order to save the Road Demon ancestor, the king and the other old subordinates led us into the ultimate. King Vimakaitra even broke into the seal alone. In the end, the king sacrificed himself and was drowned and killed by the River Styx demon ancestor with the Blood Sea. But the other great Azura kings broke into the depths of the ultimate. Before he died, the king Vimakaitra saw the method the River Styx demon ancestor used to seal the Road Demon ancestor. He also determined the way to break the seal. Poya Mo glanced at the group of Azura demon followers and said excitedly, "That's why we willingly allowed ourselves to be trapped in the calamity, eye of the Blood Sea, and the immeasurable calamity. It's also that we could fight for this sliver of an opportunity. It's also that we could be fully prepared to rescue the Rahu demon ancestor and establish a new era for our Azura tribe." For Azura, Poya Mo raised her 4 arms and said excitedly, "For the great Azura." The old subordinates of Ro, the Azura demon followers, roared. The mummy that brought Fan Wujie and Yuan Yu into Golden Turtle Island stood out. He was no longer the half-dead person he was when he first saw Yuan Yu. Now he was still covered in green hair, but he was no longer that skinny and withered look. Instead, his entire body was surging with a strong corpse chi. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear, just like a tall, green-haired zombie. However, this was only a change in appearance. In fact, the real essence of the mummy was still this human skin. It was just that this human skin was now inflated by the strong corpse chi. This was the difference between before and after it was inflated. If Yuan Yu was here, he would definitely be very surprised, because he originally thought that the mutation of the dried corpse's human skin was a common characteristic of the survivors of Ro who cultivated the destruction demon path. But now it seemed that this was just a special case. After the other destruction demon followers obtained the fortune of the Poya, divine treasure, and escaped from the state of imminent destruction, they returned to normal. The indescribable state that they had with the destruction great Tao disappeared. But after the dried corpse was replenished by the fortune, it only inflated the human skin a little. The essence was still the human skin that was imprinted with the destruction great Tao. It was extremely fragile and abnormally terrifying. Did this mean that the nature of destruction of the dried corpse was even higher than the leader of the destruction demon followers, Poya Mo? Also, the dried corpse's final Tao understanding made Yuan Yu feel threatened. But when the Poya king's heart was in the divine treasure, a destruction demon follower who had unleashed the final Tao understanding was eliminated by the combined forces of the Buddha sect and the devil sect without any Dara's help. In comparison, there seemed to be some difference in power. The green-haired zombie asked, "Leader, is there anything here that can save Lord Ro? Are you questioning why I would take such a huge risk and enter deep into this devilish domain?" Poya Mo said coldly, "Why did I not hesitate to use the remaining blood chi of the king's corpse to enter this place?" The green-haired zombie bowed his head and said, "I don't dare. Rise." Looking at the green-haired zombie kneeling in fear, Poya Moqo waved her hand and said, "It's time to tell you some things." The plan to save Lord Ro was exchanged with the lives of the great Azura kings. At that time, the kings realized that if they wanted to save Ro demon ancestor, they couldn't attract the attention of the great divine arts practitioners. So the weaker the person carrying out the plan, the better. If Dara moved, it would attract the attention of Dara from the three religions and even ancestor river Styx. So the more inconspicuous the person carrying out the plan, the better. Furthermore, the ruins of End hides a huge secret. It is a place that many Dara and the great divine arts practitioners pay special attention to. The person carrying out the plan can't come from the outside world. Instead, he has to hide in the ruins of End until the great divine arts practitioners don't notice him. The green-haired zombie said in realization, So His Majesty raised a hand and protected us, making us the only hope. But to enter the deepest part of the ruins of End, where Ro demon ancestor is sealed, even Dara wouldn't be able to do it. The kings paid a heavy price to enter the ruins of End. How can we do it? An Azura demon follower raised an objection. Ever since the endless calamity, the Azura race had been united against the destruction demon follower who suffered under the blood calamity. But now, Poya Moqo told them that their sacrifice was only for the sake of a hopeless plan. Even with the loyalty of the Azura race, they couldn't bear such a blow. Poya Moqo growled in a low voice. The great Azura kings already have a complete plan. Do you not believe in His Majesty? Compared to the sacrifice of His Majesty and the great Azura kings, our sacrifice is nothing. The speaker quickly bowed and admitted his mistake. Poya Moqo said calmly, "The way to enter the ruins of End is here. This is the only place where many ancient species of the chaos are preserved. The Hall of Illumination of the Sky Demon Palace has preserved many ancient species of the ancient demon clan. These are all strange species created by Ancestor River Styx in ancient times. At that time, Ancestor River Styx's Tao of creation wasn't so crazy. It didn't challenge the limits of creation. Ancestor River Styx was busy expanding the range of species, so the species he created were relatively peaceful and ancient. After Ancestor Hutu opened the reincarnation cycle, Ancestor River Styx's Tao of creation became more and more extreme. The species he created became more and more challenging the limits of creation and life. That was why the powerful beings forced Ancestor River Styx to seal his creations in the ruins of End, in the sky of freedom where he experimented with creation. Due to the changes in the environment, many ancient species were no longer suitable for breeding in the outside world. Therefore, Ancestor River Styx moved some of them to the immemorial demon court. Many ancient species here are extinct in the outside world. Among them is the number one Nantua ancient ant in the universe. Nantua ancient ant. The green-haired corpse was shocked. Some of the destruction demon disciples frowned and scratched their heads in confusion. Some had never heard of this ancient species. Poya Moqo explained, "It's normal that you haven't heard of this species. The Nantua ancient ant was already on the verge of extinction when the immemorial demon court ruled the world. It was said that it was hunted by its natural enemies. In the immemorial demon era, this ancient species was very common. They're good at piercing through restrictions and can drill through anything. According to the legends, they can even drill holes in the universe and can even crawl to an even more ancient era. The most famous characteristic of this ancient species is that it can't be trapped. Even a powerful being would find it difficult to suppress this species. It looks like an ordinary ant, but it can drill holes in the universe and drill into the void. It can even crawl into the depths of the universe. As long as there is a flaw in the operation of restrictions, it can drill through. It's an ancient species that can't be suppressed. Only such a species would be able to find the flaw in the Rahu Fiend Ancestor seal and bring us into the sealed land. At this time, someone asked in a weak voice, if this ancient species can't be suppressed and sealed, how did demon ancestor trap them here? Poya Mo said lightly, their ancestor river Styx's creations, so it's easy for demon ancestor to trap them. Moreover, the non-Tua ancient ant has a terrifying natural enemy that hunts them down. As long as one escapes the ultimate, it will be hunted down by the natural enemy. Naturally, they don't dare to escape the ultimate. The green-haired zombie shook his head and said, it's not a problem how River Styx demon ancestor traps them, but how do we trap them? Let me ask you, if the non-Tua ancient ants are not restricted, how do we capture them? Even if we are lucky enough to catch two, how do we preserve them? Great Master Fajing looked at the purple gold alms bowl in his hand with a strange expression. He saw that the 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass preserved in the purple gold alms bowl had been bitten off a small piece. On the tail of the spirit grass that looked like a dragon worm, there were 2 or 3 tiny white insects which were like 1 or 2 small ants. An old monk beside him was so distressed that his lips were trembling. He wailed, my 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass. This is a 5 transformations dragon soul worm grass, the king of spiritual roots in ancient times. Master Fa Jing was so anxious that his eyes turned red. After the destruction of ancient times, I don't know if there are still such treasured herbs growing. This is a spiritual herb that can allow people to live another life. It's known as a quasi-immortal herb. Many people from the mystic door evaluated it above the immortal herb. After all, the immortal herb can only allow people to live forever, but this spiritual herb can allow people to live another life. It's also known as a medicine for regret. Any problems in the foundation of cultivation can be made up for by living another life. It can be said to be a medicine for regret on the path of cultivation. Furthermore, the true medicine for regret, the 9 transformations pill of rebirth without regrets. Legend has it that it can allow one to reincarnate to the beginning of life with their memories and start over again. One of its main ingredients is the 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass. Legend has it that this spiritual herb was created by the River Styx demon ancestor to challenge the order of reincarnation. Therefore, it was envied by the heavens. At the beginning of its growth, ghosts from the netherworld secretly stole the essence of the spiritual herb and ate it dry. There is also a legend that when this spiritual herb transformed, it needed to take root in the netherworld. At this time, the ghosts and God from the netherworld would see it and cut it off. Therefore, it was extremely rare in the world. After the primordial world was broken, there were no more rumors about it. Since Master Fa Jing entered the palace ruins, he had encountered countless ancient and strange species. It was unbelievable that he found a few of them. A group of people risked their lives to snatch one from the mouth of the ancient plague locust. Fa Jing cherished it like an eyeball and carefully stored it in the purple gold alms bowl. He didn't expect the primordial spiritual treasure to be invaded. It was bitten off by this strange insect. Fa Jing observed the insects carefully and howled. It's actually the non-Tua ancient ants. The non-Tua ancient ants that are number 1 in breaking restrictions and can travel in space. The old monks then put away their distressed expressions and asked Fa Jing carefully, Senior brother, how much is this thing worth? What the F*CK is it worth? Fa Jing stomped his feet and said, it's a pest, a great disaster of the primordial world. No wonder the seniors said in the ancient books that the spiritual pills and spiritual herbs of the primordial world can't be placed randomly. If they're placed for a long time, they will grow worms. So it means that the spiritual herbs that are placed for a long time will attract the non-Tua ancient ants, and they will eat away at them. This is a famous pest in the primordial world. My precious medicine, my peerless medicine for regret. Isn't this thing extinct long ago? Back then, this thing must have eaten away some treasure of the primordial demon courts in Wangong. It incurred the wrath of this peerless demon god. He ordered his bloodline descendant, the Fu Count bird, to exterminate the non-Tua ancient ants whenever it saw them. He also gave the Fu Count bird the talent to kill these insects. From then on, the Fu Count bird became this ant's natural enemy. It traveled to the primordial world and exterminated the Nantua ancient ants. Nantua ancient ants. Yuan Yu had a strange expression. He looked at the two white dots on the builder tree and said softly, "Why are they still here? Didn't Nan Wang Gong exterminate them?" It's not strange that it can get close to the builder tree. After all, it's an ancient species with the best escape technique. It's said that it's a strange species created by ancestor river sticks. It was exterminated during the time when the primordial world was ruled by the primordial demon court. At that time, the great medic of the demon race, Nan Wanggong Bo Fu of the primordial demon court, created their natural enemy, the Fu Count bird. He searched the primordial world and exterminated them. Fan Wujia asked doubtfully, "Nan Wanggong is a great medic of the primordial demon race. Why do you have a problem with a small ant?" Nan Wanggong. He was a great medic of the primordial world. He was one of the two giants of the demon race, along with the Kuanping patriarch. One of them led the demon race's celestial generals, and the other led the demon race's celestial lords. They were the left and right arms of the demon king, the emperor of heaven. However, when the primordial demon court was destroyed, they betrayed the demon king. It said that the demon king was afraid of them and suppressed them secretly. Some say that if the demon king hadn't cut off his own arm, the emperor of heaven might not have been able to replace the demon court with the heaven. Yuan Yu sighed and said, "However, there's another legend about the Nantua ancient ant. It's said that ancestor river sticks created this species to make things difficult for Nan Wanggong. Nan Wanggong was afraid of his wife. Every time he came home with women, he would be punished to kneel to the ant. Ancestor river sticks took pleasure in his misfortune, so he created a strange species that even Nan Wanggong couldn't defeat. It's the Nantua ancient ant. He secretly instigated it to Nan Wanggong's wife. From then on, Nan Wanggong hated the Nantua ancient ant to the bone, and he wanted to exterminate it. However, his wife stopped him from doing so. It wasn't until the primordial demon court was established that Nan Wanggong used his bloodline to create a kind of demon bird, the talisman bird, and exterminated it. Just to mess with Nan Wanggong, ancestor river sticks created a heaven-defying species? Fan Wujia looked at the sky speechlessly. Were the great mediums so free? Just to vent his anger, Nan Wanggong was willing to exterminate such a heaven-defying species. Yuan Yu sighed. Fan Wujia rested his chin on his hand and watched the show. What happened after that? After that, Nan Wanggong thought that he had vented his anger, but he didn't expect Ancestor River Styx to be even better and fall into his trap. Ancestor River Styx secretly created a rumor that Nan Wanggong had been merciful and left behind countless descendants to breed the talisman bird race. He even revealed this to Nan Wanggong's wife. Then, the grape rack in Nan Wanggong's backyard collapsed. Even when the primordial demon court was destroyed, Nan Wanggong didn't do anything. Everyone said that Ancestor River Styx started with Nan Wanggong's weakness and eradicated one of the primordial demon court's arms. He was known as the 34th best strategist of the primordial world. At the beginning of the game, he started with the weakness of human nature, calculated countless eons, and unexpectedly got rid of a great medium. Originally, I thought that although Nan Wanggong was temporarily unlucky, he still got rid of a major threat. Now, it seems that Ancestor River Styx also specially raised a group of Nantua ancient ants in the ultimate for Nan Wanggong's wife. Back then, Nan Wanggong didn't make it in time for the last battle against the liches and demons, so he should be kneeling on the ants. Although Nan Wanggong's wife is reasonable and will not interfere with official business, as long as she is temporarily entangled, Nan Wanggong will not dare to make a move. And temporarily entangling a woman is too easy. Fan Wujia couldn't believe it. Just for a woman, Nan Wanggong even lost the primordial demon court? Just because he has to kneel on the ants? Is kneeling on the ants more important than the survival of the demon court? You don't understand. Yuan Yu said faintly. Kneeling on the ants is related to Nan Wangong's life and death. Compared to that, what is the primordial demon court? To control the Nantoa ancient ants, you have to use the skeleton of the Bo-Fu demon bird as a vessel. Only then can the Nantoa ancient ants fear the aura of their natural enemy and not dare to escape. Puyamakuo said confidently. Nan Wangong knelt on the Nantoa ancient ants for hundreds of yuan hui before he came up with a way to restrain this ancient species. From then on, he could kneel freely. Unfortunately, River Styx later created the cultivation path of the Nantoa ancient ants. They could use Nan Wangong's aura to cultivate and refine themselves to become smaller and smaller, making it harder to deal with and easier to escape into the void. In the end, they could cultivate into the Nantoa ant king, a species of the void that could escape anything. This was because River Styx created the Nantoa ant king and the Nantoa ant queen, two even stranger species. One was a void species that could not be restrained, while the other could reproduce the Nantoa ancient ants and evolve their bloodline, making them more and more compatible with their natural enemy. That was why Nan Wangong was trapped for dozens of yuan hui, preventing him from interfering in the war between the shamans and demons. In the end, Nan Wangong completely lost his temper and used his identity as a great mediator to change the primordial world's heavenly Tao, making it impossible for the Nantoa ancient ants to survive. Only then did this ancient species become extinct. Chapter 1271. Staring at the Nantoa ancient ants on the sprout, Yuan Yu's eyes were filled with curiosity, and he murmured, "Maybe I know why the destruction demon followers, the remnants of Ro, wanted to enter this place. The Nantoa ancient ants are the best in the art of escape. Their innate skill allows them to break through all kinds of seals. This ancient species, created by the slaughter demon ancestor, is able to find the weakest part of the seals. In order to enter the forbidden land where Ro is sealed, one must have the help of this mysterious species." The Shui-Tu King's eyes darkened. "I remember that we can use the Nantoa ancient ants to craft a type of restriction-breaking talisman, using this species' innate skill to break through the seals. Are these destruction demon followers trying to craft this talisman?" Yuan Yu shook. "The place where Ro is sealed is not some ordinary seal. It is a shackle formed by the returning ruins demon god's mortal body, a seal that contains the entire returning ruins power. The returning ruins demon god's essence is entangled with the destruction demon god, and through the seals of the great presences, it turned into a shackle that locked Ro's Yuan Shan. In other words, they are using Ro's power as the shackle to lock its Yuan Shan. That place is the deepest place in the returning ruins. I even suspect that Dara Heaven is there as well. How can a mere restriction-breaking talisman be able to enter such a place? If you want to enter the sealed area, you must have the best escape art in the heavens, the best calculation in the heavens, the best killing art in the heavens, and the best speed in the heavens, using the Nantoa ancient ant to find the flaw of the seal. Then, using the best calculation in the heavens, you must calculate the time and changes of the flaw. Then, using the best killing art in the heavens, you must slash the weak point of the seal. Finally, you must seize that fleeting moment and use the best speed in the heavens to escape into the flaw. Only in this way can we create a weak chance on the seal so that insignificant existences like us can sneak in. The best art of escape, other than the Nantoa ancient ant's innate skill, can only be achieved by those who have mastered the art of transformation to the great 5 elements escape, or those who have mastered the innate yin and yang qi and the 5-color divine light. The best calculation in the returning ruins can only be achieved by Emperor Shi's innate and acquired 8 trigrams, the ancient Heaven-Heavens River diagram and Luo Shu, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors Lianshan Huizong, Zhou, Yi, Ziwei, the great emperor's Ziwei Do number, Chimen Duanjia, Lu Run divine lesson, and Tai Yi divine number. I was able to locate the flaws of Dara's remains with the 9 palaces flying stars. But with my cultivation and divination, I'm not even worthy of carrying the shoes of those people up there. The best killing treasure in the returning ruins is the most difficult. Since ancient times, Only the returning ruins, immortal execution formation, and the Bell of Chaos can be called the best killing treasure in the returning ruins. Luckily, the best killing treasure in the returning ruins is the limit that the returning ruins can bear. It's much weaker than the returning ruins, so you only need to use Dara's full power. That way, you only need to borrow an innate spirit treasure that specializes in killing, such as the heavenly demonic blood god saber, the sea-calming divine pearl, the male and female swords, the mirror of Yin-Yang. Every time you mention a name, the faces of the group of demon lords turned ghastly. In the end, the leader of the lifeless sect had no choice but to interrupt him and said, "If we could get our hands on any of the supreme treasures of any of the sects, I would have killed them long ago." Cult Master Chao knew, "Be serious." The Shui-Tu King interrupted. Yuan Yu pouted and shook his head. "If you could summon the immortal execution flying knife, or the projection of Yuan-Tu and Avicii's two swords, or even a trace of its aura, you might be able to execute a strike like that. If I could get a trace of the aura of the spirit treasure that demon ancestor carries with him, would I still be able to survive in the returning ruins with my abilities? I would have gone to the boundless sea of blood to hug demon ancestor's thigh." An old demon's words were crude, but they were not crude. Yuan Yu spread his hands and said, "Then there's nothing we can do. Don't be fooled by the fact that the remnants of Ro have Dara's corpse in their hands. Even if they burn Poya's corpse, they won't be able to unleash the number 1 strike in the returning ruins. The number 1 speed in the returning ruins is easy. You just need to reach the speed of light. Fan Brat's cosmic light escape art, Shui-Tu King's blood transformation escape art, and Ajadi's 9 underworld escape art are all possible. The only thing is that the number 1 speed in the returning ruins is the basic requirement to enter the seal. If you can't reach the speed of light, then don't even think about breaking into the seal's flaw. You'll die even if you enter. We don't need to think about anything else. Someone will prepare everything for us." The Shui-Tu King analyzed calmly. Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "Don't count on the destroying demon disciples to be defenseless and be used by us. In fact, after being polished by the Eon's calamity, their plan is already flawless. There's no chance for us to be used. If we want to play with them, we have to have our own trump cards." Ajadi stared at the Nantoa ancient ant on the sprout of the builder tree. He tried to form a black-green hand with his primordial spirit and pinched the Nantoa ancient ant from afar. The black-green hand turned into a rolling black cloud, gathering and dispersing unpredictably as it tried to grab the Nantoa ancient ant. However, the closer it got to the sprout of the builder tree, the smaller the hand became. The closer it got to the builder tree, the greater the curvature of the space. In the end, it turned into a mustard seed. Ajadi desperately opened up the primordial spirit hand. He felt that his second primordial spirit had already expanded to its maximum size, covering the sky and holding a small world in its palm. However, when it was 3 feet away from the sprout of the builder tree, the primordial spirit hand was already like a speck of dust. If it wanted to move forward, it would become even smaller. At this moment, something seemed to fly up from the sprout of the builder tree. The demon monarchs could only sense that something was approaching Ajadi's second primordial spirit. However, it was only when it was about to reach the primordial spirit hand that they saw the speck of dust rapidly expanding. In the end, when it reached the position of Ajadi's primordial spirit hand, it was already the size of a mosquito. It was like a mosquito. It flapped its wings and buzzed, but the primordial spirit hand at the same position was only the size of a speck of dust. The mosquito was thousands of times bigger. One had to know that the size of the palm formed by the second primordial spirit could cover the sky and the sun, and it could even hold a small world. Compared to that, how big was the mosquito? The demon monarchs could not help but feel their scalps go numb. Ajadi was sweating profusely, and he could not help but shake his head and say, "This builder tree is indeed the world tree. Its main body is probably as big as a boundless universe, and the surface of the leaf might be a boundless continent. Who knows how many terrifying monsters live there, but we just cannot see them. If we recklessly enter that world, We might alarm countless strange, ancient species. The risk is too great. Fan Wu Jie could not help but interrupt. But those two Nanta ancient ants seem to be lying on the leaf of the builder tree. If we can't even see those terrifying monsters on the builder tree, then how big are these two ants that we can see? The demon monarchs instantly lost their voices, and they ran madly toward the gate of the Hall of Translucence. What the hell? What the hell? The Shuetu king said anxiously. So the most terrifying monster is right in front of us, and we were just discussing how to catch it. The Nantua ancient ants are the first in the universe. We don't know how long those two ants have lived on the builder tree, but they most likely grew up with the builder tree, so they have the characteristics of the builder tree. They still look like ants, but their standard is the builder tree, and in front of them we are the ants. Yuan Yu's face was pale, and he said, "This ancient species created by the demon ancestor is incomparably mysterious, and it has an unpredictable ability to evolve. I already said that a species that can survive under the knees of the Nan Wangkung is not that simple. It most likely has an unparalleled ability to evolve. They grew up with the builder tree, parasitizing it, and using the builder tree as a reference to grow, using the builder tree as nourishment and food. Although they still look like ants, they're already an extremely terrifying monster." The Shuetu king calmed his nerves, and he said, "I made a mistake. I made a mistake." Fan Wu Jie's face was gloomy, and he said, "The builder tree is the world tree, and growing up with the world tree, how great is that? Moreover, the species created by the demon ancestor are probably a little strange. For example, the Nantua ancient ants have a terrifying ability to evolve. They grew up with the builder tree, using the world tree as a reference. Every life form has a growth limit. And of course, the Nantua ancient ants have one as well. But the scary thing about the Nantua ancient ants is that their growth limit is a relative limit, a concept that they have compared to other existences. The Nantua ancient ants are indeed ants, but if they grow up with other powerful species, their concept of ants will deviate, and they will grow into ants that are relative to those powerful species. If there was also a Nantua ancient ant lying on Panga's head when he created the world, and it gave birth to an ant that was relative to Pangu, it will probably grow into an innate god. At this thought, everyone shuddered, and they could not imagine what kind of existence the ants on Pangu's head were. The creation of the river Styx demon ancestor is too strange. I wonder if anyone has noticed that the Nantua ancient ants have such terrifying characteristics. Yuan Yu hugged himself in fear. The limit of this species depends on the environment it grows in. It has a clear definition of its position, and it will definitely grow to that level in whatever environment it grows in, even though it sees itself as an ant. But sometimes, ants in certain environments can easily destroy other worlds. This must be another crazy experiment by the demon ancestor. An old demon swore, "The demon ancestor is too scary. He will definitely destroy the universe. He will cause an earth-shattering disaster." As expected of the slaughter demon ancestor, his mental state is really dangerous. Is this the demonic nature? The slaughter demon ancestor's demonic nature is very strange. He seems to have a curiosity to destroy everything and an extremely evil drive. There is always a kind of madness that does not care about the consequences and does not care about anything. I seem to have grasped a trace of the supreme demonic nature, and my understanding of the cultivation method passed down by the demon ancestor has improved by another level. The great freedom heaven contains the supreme demonic nature of the demon ancestor, and the existences here are all strange and unpredictable. A ferocious, strange bird with incomparably gorgeous feathers, but its aura was not at all peaceful. Instead, it was abnormally fierce, and it lowered its head to count the ants under its knees. 1, 2, 3. It had to be careful at all times. It could not let these weak ants kneel to death. But it also had to pay attention, lest these species, which had the concept of being ants compared to it, burrow into the void and escape. It had a very terrifying psychological shadow over the consequences of one kneeling to death and another kneeling to escape. These damned ants, damned troublesome. They had the strange ability of space and could often seize the moment when the strange bird was not paying attention, break through its magical power, and disappear without a trace. But they could not use too much force, and if the strange bird used its full demon power to suppress them, they would die in front of it. When that time came, the strange bird would be the unlucky one. These damned species were specially created by a certain existence with a bad taste to see it in distress. The most terrible thing was that these ants had an astonishing ability to adapt and evolve, so their ability was constantly changing and adapting to its magic power and aura, so that the strange bird could never find a suitable strength and method to suppress them forever. Therefore, in order to make things difficult for it, someone had indeed put in a lot of effort. The strange bird swore to block the entrance of the Blood Sea in the next Yuhui to cause trouble. When that time comes, I will also bring a few capable brothers. I think that Cocky Peacock is a good choice. When that time comes, I will force him to block the door for me, or he will eat these ants for me. They are evolving too fast. If I don't get rid of them now, it will be troublesome if my wife catches a few more of them next time. River Styx is bullying me because I am not as proficient in the path of creation as he is. Unfortunately, I am indeed not proficient. Next time, I will help the Buddhists beat up his little brat. Subduing demons is the duty of my generation. Bah, I am a great demon, a great sage of the demon race. Exterminating demons and protecting the Tao. Yes, exterminating demons and protecting the Tao is the duty of my generation. Bah, River Styx, I will beat your Tao of evil to the ground. Inside the Hall of Enlightenment was an ancient world with a flourish of the prehistoric era. Fa Jing held the purple gold alms bowl, his large hands covering the mouth of the alms bowl tightly. The corners of his eyes were twitching wildly. Those who knew him well could see that this big monk was on the verge of losing his temper. Fa Jing was trembling with anger. This thing? How do I kill it with this thing? He had already tried countless methods. He used the chanting of Buddhist light, used the great power of subduing demons to suppress it, used the power of the purple gold alms bowl to imprison it, used the power of the connate spiritual treasure to subdue it, used the virtue-purifying water to dissolve the spiritual roots of the precious medicine, and used dozens of methods to hide things. However, every time he tried to chase away the two hateful ants, as long as he shifted his gaze slightly, he would always see the two ants lying on the precious medicine that was worth billions and chewing on it. It was as if the spiritual medicine could grow worms on its own. In the end, Fa Jing had no choice but to arrange for two old monks to keep an eye on the precious spiritual medicine. However, the two Nantua ancient ants acted as if they did not see them. They swaggered into the spiritual medicine and chewed on it from the inside out. As Fa Jing's methods became more and more ruthless, the ants seemed to be provoking him. At first, there were only two of them. Later, when Fa Jing realized that something was wrong and broke open the spiritual medicine to check, there were already more than 10 of them. A small group of Nantua ancient ants was chewing on the spiritual medicine. He could not catch them, nor could he trap them. Even if he hardened his heart and refined them to death along with the spiritual medicine, they could also burrow into the void in time and could not be hurt at all. Fa Jing felt tired in his heart. He grabbed the spiritual medicine that he had painstakingly snatched from the hands of the ancient mutants and stuffed it into his mouth. As he choked, he stiffened his neck and swallowed. Looking at the old monk beside him who wanted to say something but stopped, Fa Jing said angrily, "Do you think I want to? I can't waste it on those pests. Eat with me, your senior brother." The old monk stammered, "Senior brother, every medicine has its poison. Many of these ancient spiritual medicines were specially created by Dara after calculating a certain medicinal effect. Dara refines medicine according to the medicinal effect, but the refinement of medicine now is piecing together the ingredients." "What do you mean?" Fa Jing asked. "Senior brother, there are vines growing out of your ears." The old monk pointed at the purple vine that was rustling out of Fa Jing's ears and said, "It seems to be the heart-piercing, bone-eating, brain-eating, purple-blooded vine. Senior brother, allow me to help you pluck it. Therefore, many of the spiritual medicines in ancient times were specially cultivated by Dara to breed a certain medicinal effect, unlike the spiritual medicines of today, which have adapted to nature. The ancient spiritual medicines have many strange habits and characteristics, and even more so, have many strange processing methods. Some have to go through special processing to obtain a certain special medicinal effect. For example, this heart-piercing, bone-eating, brain-eating, purple-blooded vine must be parasitized in a certain powerful demonic beast, allowing it to devour its bones and blood. Finally, the brain is extracted as blood marrow, which grows out of the 7 orifices. After cutting open the vines, the purple blood marrow is extracted from the demonic beast's brain. It has a certain special medicinal effect, and because of the different species of demonic beast it devours, the medicinal effect will be slightly different. The old monk cut open the purple-blooded vine and looked at the purple-gold blood marrow within, praising, "The quality of the spiritual medicine cultivated by Senior Brother's brain is indeed excellent. There is a delicate fragrance of the epiphyllum and a deep Buddhist nature." Fajin could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The Buddhist blood was dark black. The old monk sighed. "Senior Brother, you should screen it before consuming it. Besides, I don't recommend you to consume it raw. After all, most spiritual medicines have a certain special medicinal effect. The medicinal effect is the same as the toxicity. Medicine is poison, and the more medicine, the more poisonous it is. There are many ancient species preserved here, and their medicinal effects are very unique and precious. It can reproduce many ancient prescriptions. But if you consume it raw without processing it, not only will it waste the spiritual medicine, but it will also easily cause a conflict between the medicinal effects. Look, isn't it poisoned?" Fajing had already recalled the many spiritual medicines he had swallowed in one gulp. He suddenly realized that the dozen stalks that contained special poisons took up a small portion of the spiritual medicines. They seemed to have been collected by this skinny old monk. Furthermore, he had obtained spiritual medicines from the mouths of ancient demonic beings and ferocious beasts. This junior brother seemed to have only dug in some strange places and used some strange methods to pluck some specific parts of the spiritual medicine. Fajing asked in a low voice, "May I know what is this junior brother's Dharma name?" The old monk had a kind expression and put his palms together. "Dharma name Wu Chun." Fajin smiled sadly. "Junior brother, are you great master Wu Chun, who is known as the king of medicine, merciless hands?" In front of senior brother Fajing, "I only have a superficial understanding of the Dharma. How would I dare to call myself a great master?" Wu Chun was very humble. Fajing wanted to say that this junior brother's understanding of spiritual medicine seemed to be a little off. Spiritual medicine was the divine beauty of creation, the spirit of heaven and earth. In essence, it was the gathering of spirituality and spiritual energy. The medicinal effects could be easily refined and nourished one's cultivation. In essence, it was a kind of creation. That was why there were countless ferocious birds and beasts guarding it. The primordial, treasured spiritual medicine that we were talking about were all fruits in essence. Peaches of immortality, ginseng fruits, yellow plums, and the lotus seeds of the green lotus of creation were all representatives of this sect. This kind of spiritual medicine was actually a fruit with great nourishment. I've never heard of any harm from eating it. Your focused spiritual root has a special characteristic. It's the kind that focuses on medicinal effects and changes in physical properties. It's a professional sect that believes that everything can be used as medicine and everything can be used as medicine. We barged into this ominous land to snatch the creation and eat the fruits. Junior brother, you're actually focusing on picking spiritual medicine that has a myriad of medicinal effects and can't be used by non-professionals. Then you sneak into my fruit basket. Are you trying to trick me? You're trying to trick me. But when he thought of the chaotic and conflicting medicinal effects in his body that needed this professional to resolve, Fajing could only squeeze out an ugly smile and say to Wu Chun, "I'll have to trouble junior brother to detoxify me." Wu Chan went around to collect spiritual medicine and analyzed its medicinal effects, preparing to detoxify his senior brother. That small group of Nantua ancient ants lay quietly in the purple-gold alms bowl, munching on the primordial fruits and treasured spiritual roots inside. Fajing looked at the 2 or 3 ants in the purple-gold alms bowl. His mood had already reached a state of great peace and silence. He chanted softly, "Bodhisattva taught us to cherish the lives of ants. This calamity happened because I had the intention to kill. So Bodhisattva sent junior brother Wu Chan to enlighten me. No anger, no anger, no anger. I'm only afraid that my anger will harm Brahman, and I'll kill with a flick of my finger, falling into the void. Be compassionate, don't be stingy. Senior brother, it's done." Wu Chan fed Fajing the antidote. Fajing felt his chest loosen and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. There were countless venomous insects the size of rice grains in the blood, but they were the main medicine to neutralize the poison. He smiled and waved at Wu Chan, saying, "Junior brother, come here. I won't beat you to death." Fajing angrily threw the purple-gold alms bowl on the ground. "Eat, eat, eat. I'll eat you to death." With a ferocious expression, he rolled up his sleeves and called Wu Chan over while crushing the spiritual medicine with his feet. Yamo Qo pushed aside the grass and looked around. His butt was in the air, and he didn't have the demeanor of a world-destroying demon. A group of Azura demons followed behind him and searched bit by bit. They had already searched for hundreds of miles, but they didn't even see a single Nantua ancient ant. Piyamo Qo was already a little nervous. This kind of ancient species comes and goes like ghosts. It's normal that we can't find any trace of them. Piyamo Qo said in a low voice, "We have already endured the immeasurable cataclysm. Why are we in such a hurry?" Piyamo Qo comforted everyone. But Piyamo Qo knew that the Buddhist and demon sects were already involved, and it was no longer the time to be silent in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye. After the plan was activated, they had to race against time, because if they were late, there would be changes. They had to rush into the sealed land before Dara of the 3 sects noticed the change in the ultimate and focused on them. Piyamo Qo had prepared everything, but he was stuck at this inconspicuous step. Who knew that these ghost ants would be so hard to catch? He prepared a way to subdue the Nantua ancient ants, understood the habits of these ancient species, and was proficient in tracking them based on the traces they left behind, but he couldn't find them. What should he do if he couldn't find them? Should he go and catch a talisman bird? Piyamo Qo was going crazy. Chapter 1272. As time passed, the ancient species that appeared in the Hall of Enlightenment became more and more bizarre. Most of these species were not considered powerful, but their intrinsic divine powers were very strange. They seemed to be mixed with the thoughts of the fiend ancestor. There were all sorts of strange and unpredictable species that formed a complete and complicated ecological chain. These ecological chains represented a completely different direction of evolution from the primitive universe. Poyamoko knew that the orthodox creation of the primordial universe was in the hands of Empress Enviwa, Goddess Hutu, and even the Celestial Emperor. However, Patriarch Nether River, who had created these species, seemed to have a different understanding of creation. Therefore, the ancient species and blood sea monsters here were not divided into natal and acquired. They could not even be included in the cultivation system. They competed, hunted, killed, lived together, and parasitized. Together, they evolved into a rich and colorful ecological chain. What left them the most helpless and difficult to adapt to was the fact that as the most powerful Tao Lords in the universe, they could not find their place in this ecosystem. Sometimes they could slay powerful monsters at the very top of the food chain, but other times they would die at the hands of the most inconspicuous, weakest, and most common species. If they were bitten by a poisonous spider, they could get rid of the poison with true fire. But if they were bitten by a spider of the same species, they would turn into pus the moment they were bitten. These ancient species could not be defined by ranks. Some were golden immortal level beasts, some were sky immortal level poisons, some were yang god level beasts, and some were gold pill level beasts. Ranks did not exist. Poyamatsu did not know which ancient species were connate life forms that even the golden immortals could not afford to provoke. In this world, some existences as weak as ants could live peacefully, but they seem to face the malice and danger of the whole world. "We can't afford to waste time," Poyamatsu said in a low voice. "I was going to use the safest method, but now it seems that we have to take some risks." The green-haired corpse looked up at the Azura demons, who had lost 3 or 4 people, and said uneasily, "This is still the safest method? Then what is the unsafe method? We're like aliens that have entered this world. The safest method is to stay weak and do nothing, follow the rules here, and integrate ourselves into this world. Therefore, what we are facing is only a small counterattack from the ancient species that lives here to determine our position in the food chain. But there's an even more radical way to play it. We'll invade this world without caring about the consequences and finish what we have to do. Then, we'll retreat before the world attacks us." Poyamatsu said seriously. "What if we can't escape from this world in time?" The green-haired zombie asked uneasily. "Then we will have to face the rebellion of the ancient species." Poyamatsu said in a deep tone. "I hope that at that time, a few of us can escape alive and continue our king's great cause and plan." Poyamatsu took out a white skull. Judging from the hollow bone and beak, it was the skull of a bird. Through the skull, one could almost see the distorted space. It was like black lines, messy with a strange rhythm, scattered in the void. It was because of this wonderful vision that the Talisman Count was able to hunt down the Nantua ancient ants everywhere, becoming the natural enemy of this species with the best escape technique. The Talisman Count couldn't escape into the void, nor could it escape through the void like the Nantua ancient ants. However, the Talisman Count had a special ability. Like spiders, they could sense the slightest movement in the void. Their perception spread out along the lines of space. Whenever the space was distorted or touched, they could sense even the slightest spatial ripple several worlds away. Then, they would instinctively eliminate the ripples that didn't match the Nantua ancient ants' innate ability. Finally, they would find a target and chase after it. After discovering the Nantua ancient ants that escaped into the void, the Talisman Count would use its long beak to peck into the void and pull the Nantua ancient ants out. Therefore, the beak of the Talisman Count could be used to refine artifacts that could travel through the void. As a material, it could increase the artifact's ability to travel through the void. However, it was most commonly used as a component of a flying artifact. It was responsible for piercing through the surface tension of space like a needle, causing the nearby void tension to be destroyed. This way, the flying artifact could use less power to break through the void. This sort of characteristic wasn't considered much to a small-scale, flying magical artifact. But for those flying magical artifacts that carried a minor dimension or even a dimensional dimension to engage in a war between two worlds, every time they activated it, the consumption of strength was like a mountain or a sea, limitless and limitless. Thus, the ability to destroy the tension of space that was required to reduce consumption and strength was of paramount importance. Secondly, the Talisman Count's soul and eyeball could be used to refine an artifact that could detect spatial ripples. It was also an important part of a flying artifact. It could be called the space radar of the flying artifact. How important a radar was in the military was how important an artifact called the Celestial Finder was. It could be called a strategic resource in the war between the heavens. In the heavens, due to the objective conditions of the Realm Sea War, flying artifact was the most important. It was seen as the embodiment of the strength of the heavens in the war. During the period of time when the situation in the heavens was tense, the Talisman Count bird was worth billions. It was a precious material that could only be found by luck. Thus, it was hunted by the cultivators of the heavens. If it wasn't for the fact that it required the cooperation of several Tao monarchs and the risk of losing 1 or 2 people in order to hunt it, it would have gone extinct long ago. The skull of the Talisman Count bird is very precious. Poyamatsu examined the skull and said, "Even though I had already started planning before the immeasurable aeon, I only have 2 of them. I was planning to use them to trap 1 or 2 living Nanto ants, but in order to buy more time, I had to use one of them to create an abnormal spatial ripple in the Hall of Translucence, simulating the ripple caused by the talisman count striking the space with its beak. It will cause the Nantua ants living here to become restless. We will use this chance to lock onto the target. Then, regardless of everything, we will capture some of the Nantua ants before they escape. Golden threads seeped out of Poya Umo Qo's hand and seeped into the skull of the talisman count bird. The surrounding void stirred up transparent ripples. Poya Mo Qo lightly flicked the skull. A destructive tribulation power like black lightning landed on the skull and instantly stimulated all of its potential. A strange illusory talisman count bird materialized. This talisman count bird had 5 colored feathers, like a phoenix, but there were 5 colored runes on the feathers. This talisman count bird's feathers were messy, the runes were not smooth, and some of its feathers were even messy. Its feathers were like arrows, shooting out in all directions. Although this talisman count bird had 5 colored feathers, it was chaotic. Therefore, it wasn't a phoenix divine beast, but a ferocious talisman count bird. As soon as the illusory talisman count bird materialized, under Poya Mo Qo's control, it probed into the void with its divine beak. Black threads spread out from the surrounding space, spreading out in all directions. An invisible wave of space spread out in the Hall of Translucence. Fajing, who had just beaten up his junior disciple, was calmly observing the Nantua ants in the purple-gold alms bowl. Suddenly, he sensed a strangeness. The Nantua ants in the purple-gold alms bowl were restless. They dug holes in the void, preparing to escape. Wait, Great Master Fajing wasn't in a hurry to be happy. Instead, his face darkened and he said in a low voice, "Someone is approaching. It's the remnants of Ro. Azura demon horde." Fajing raised his head and sensed the group of people charging over arrogantly from the sky. They had triggered the stress response of countless primordial species. A swarm of primordial plague locusts flapped their wings and flew up. There were tens of millions of them, and every single one of them was emitting the aura of pestilence. In an instant, the sky was covered, and the aura of pestilence and disease swept in all directions. Fajing had only brushed against it a little, and he could smell the stench. He could feel his armpits sweating, and his conjured body was dark and filthy. He could only praise them in his heart. The Buddhists only grazed a little, but they already felt injured and mentally exhausted. The Azura demon horde had charged in aggressively from the sky. Facing the storm of immemorial plague locusts, how could it end well? The yellow-brown aura of plague, the green-black aura of disease, the purple-black aura of filth, the gray-white aura of aging, and the gray-black aura of decay. Plague, disease, filth, aging, and decay were ignited by the tens of millions of immemorial plague locusts. A trace of Tao was triggered. The 5 evils Qi turned into an ancient heaven court, the incarnation of the great emperor of plague. The plague Qi turned into a huge seal. It was the seal that represented the power of the plague division of the heaven court. The plague Qi turned into the plague whip. The filth Qi turned into the plague banner. The decaying Qi turned into the coma sword, and the aging Qi turned into the headache chime. The projections of these 5 innate treasures floated in front of the great emperor of plague. With a single strike, a few from the Azura demon horde screamed and fell down from the sky. The others were either covered in blotches or covered in pustules. But Poyamatsu didn't care so much. He activated the power of destruction. His attainment in the Tao of destruction was even higher than the green-haired mummy. He activated the power of destruction and was about to form the final solution. Poyamatsu snarled, "When the Tao is destroyed, even the Tai Chi, the foundation of existence, will crumble, not to mention a mere plague. At the end of the universe, the plague is only a part of the destruction. It will be destroyed by an even stronger calamity. The plague is also life. When all lives perish, the plague will cease to exist. Destruction, calamity, slaughter, life, calamity, kill the plague. Fajing and the others watched as Poyamatsu turned the slaughter-life calamity into the silhouette of the Uinta sword. The sword chi swept across and slashed towards herself. The Uinta sword was the sword of slaughter calamity. It symbolized the slaughter of the heaven and earth. Therefore, the power of slaughter-life calamity in the Tao of destruction would turn into the silhouette of the Uinta sword. The essence of the power of plague was an extremely tiny living being, or rather, a strange life force. Under the power of the slaughter-life calamity, these tiny living beings were killed instantly. All the diseases on Poyamatsu's body stopped acting up. However, this was equivalent to torturing himself half to death. Originally, he had already recovered the majestic and ferocious appearance of an Asura and his incomparably powerful innate body. But after the backlash of the destructive tribulation power, he had returned to the miserable appearance of a dried corpse. A few strands of Poyamatsu's hair stuck to her scalp like withered grass. She looked terrifying. He used the slaughtering life tribulation to cut down all the plague creatures and used the destruction tribulation power to devour his body. Now, anything that couldn't exist under the 12 destruction tribulations was meaningless to him. Any attack would be destroyed by his destruction essence first. He was extremely weak, but also extremely powerful. Poyamatsu swung her sword and killed the plague energy on the remaining destruction demon disciples, along with the millions of ancient plague locusts. Not good. Grandmaster Fajing was extremely nervous. No matter how he looked at it, these remnants of Ro and destruction demon disciples were here to kill them, ready to fight to the death. Who would have thought that these people had made such a big fuss just to catch ants? Who would have thought? In any case, Fajing could not understand. He saw that Poyamatsu only used one destruction calamity to kill millions of ancient plague locusts. The destruction great Tao could suppress all existences. It was infinitely powerful. He did not dare to let Poyamatsu use her full power. Otherwise, Poyamatsu could drag everyone down with her. Purple gold alms bowl. Grandmaster Fajing put his palms together. The purple gold alms bowl floated from his hands and floated behind his head. The mouth of the alms bowl immediately opened, turning into a boundless world. Junior brothers, lend me a hand. Grandmaster Fajing raised his hands high, lifting the huge purple gold alms bowl. He and the dozens of old monks and ascetics behind him opened their hands together, releasing endless light like a scorching sun. The Buddhist light that could illuminate the world was absorbed by the purple gold alms bowl. The light that could illuminate the entire world was gathered at a focal point. The Buddhist light that was as gentle as the morning sun, after the first change of focus, gathered into a scorching golden torrent. Any dark, evil energy that came into contact with this scorching torrent would evaporate. Even if the unparalleled ghost kings or evil beings of the netherworld came out, facing this endless golden torrent of Buddhist light, they would not have any advantage. The golden torrent of Buddhist light changed for the second time, turning into a scorching white, powerful Buddhist light that one could not look at directly, as if it came from the extreme heat of hell. There were a total of 9 scorched structures in the purple gold alms bowl. After the last 9 scorches, the Buddhist light turned into a faint, colorless, indiscernible ray of Buddhist light that pierced through Poyamatsu's heart. In an instant, everything there was vaporized, but Poyamatsu only sneered. The stronger your arts, the closer I am to the essence of destruction. Move, bald donkey, or I will send you all to the Western Paradise. What's wrong with seeing my Buddha in the Western Paradise? Fajing said lightly. Since the worst result is also a good thing, then this poor monk will risk everything to prevent you all from succeeding. If we die in battle, we will be able to see the revered one of the world. If you all succeed, then it will be the nightmare of all living beings in the myriad worlds. Junior brothers, follow me to slay the demons and defend the Tao. The group of old monks roared in unison. Fajing opened the purple gold alms bowl, and the mouth of the alms bowl suddenly became bigger and bigger in the eyes of the azure demons. In the end, it covered the entire sky, covering everything. The group of destruction demon followers could not help but fall into the purple gold alms bowl, about to drown in the sea of Buddhist light. At this time, the sea of Buddhist light in the purple gold alms bowl suddenly shook, creating a wave of light. The huge purple gold alms bowl was punched by someone, and the huge purple gold alms bowl flew into the air. The mouth of the alms bowl faced down, sprinkling light rain, causing the azure demons to squeak, but also allowing the destruction demon followers to struggle out of the purple gold alms bowl. The figure who punched was incomparably majestic. He stood in the void, his body in the hall of enlightenment, like a heavenly pillar above his head. To such a person, the hall of enlightenment was a hall, a heavenly palace. When Fa Jing and the others stood in the hall of enlightenment, they were like ants, but that figure could support the heavens and the earth. Poyaji. As soon as Fan Wujia and the others stepped into the hall, they saw a powerful figure that emitted an unparalleled aura. It was the body of King Poya, who had knocked the purple gold alms bowl to the ground with a single punch. Great Master Fa Jing's body trembled violently, and the treasure light of the golden body flew everywhere. Although the punch had landed on the primordial spiritual treasure, the rebounding force still caused their blood and chi to churn and their bodies to almost shatter. The Buddhists regarded the body as a stinky bag of flesh. Other than ascetic cultivators who used external forces to temper their bodies, making them tough but lacking in spirituality, which in the eyes of the mystic door would definitely damage their bodies and destroy their potential, the other Buddhist cultivators did not train their bodies at all. All of their magical power was stored in the golden body dharma. Fa Jing retracted his body and released his own golden body dharma, which only reached the calf of King Poya's body. His arms were bare as he resisted Poya Ji's punch. The punch that King Poya had landed on the purple gold alms bowl had caused the surrounding mountains to tumble and the earth to collapse. The whole world was turned upside down, and countless ancient creatures were alarmed. The Taoist monarch and the others who had just stepped into the hall had no idea what was going on. Yuan Yu looked at the changes in the Hall of Translucence with a dumbfounded expression and screamed, "Run! There's more trouble in here." Fan Wujia did not know what was going on, so he followed behind him and ran. Even though he was busy, he managed to ask, "What's wrong? Don't be fooled by the fight now. You'll have to make a list later. This is the experimental field of the River Styx ancestor, not some random world. How dare they destroy the great Empyrean where the demon ancestor of the River Styx is experimenting? I think they're tired of living." Yuan Yu said in horror. Who the hell knows what they're going to do? Do they really think this is some public street in the universe? Run. When the monsters in the depths of the Hall of Translucence are alerted, these people are dead. The old demons ran out of the hall in a panic. As soon as they got out, they saw a huge ball crashing out of the Hall of Translucence. Fan Wujia looked up, and it was as if he could see the universe falling. The ball rolled twice, and finally stopped next to the plaque of the Hall of Translucence. When they saw the true appearance of the ball, the hair on the back of everyone's neck stood on end. "King Poya!" the Shui-Tu King exclaimed. Something tore off King Poya's head. Good thing it has more than one head. What the hell happened in there? Even Dara's corpse is damaged. It looks like it was torn apart by force. Tearing Dara with bare hands is terrifying. Clang! There was a loud noise that shook the entire Hall of Translucence. All the old demons were bleeding from their mouths and noses, and nearly half of them vomited blood mixed with dark red internal organs when they heard the loud noise. Then they saw a sturdy purple gold alms bowl being smashed out of the Hall of Translucence by something, smashing through the damaged door of the Heavenly Palace. The sharp-eyed Fan Wujia also saw Fa Jing and the others hiding in the purple gold alms bowl, looking like they were on their last breaths. Chapter 1273. Seeing that the Buddhists were in trouble, the Shui-Tu King was overjoyed. He sharpened his knife and said excitedly, "Fellow Taoists, the Buddhists have provoked some forbidden existences in the Hall of Translucence. Now that they are seriously injured, they can only rely on the innate spiritual treasures to protect themselves. It is time to carry forward the good style of our demonic sect and the good tradition of hitting them when they are down. Let us greet our old acquaintances, lest others say that we are rude for no reason. The Shwetu king revealed a kind smile that was full of blood, like a country bumpkin that came out of the corner of the mountain. Ajadi picked up the white-boned sword and rushed in the direction of the purple-gold alms bowl. The yuan chi of his body was torn, and there was a loud explosion. A group of demonic sect leaders were gloating and ready to chase after the fallen dog. In a few leaps, they arrived at the place where the purple-gold alms bowl had fallen. They saw that Fajing and the others were pale, and their yuan chi was badly injured. They hid under the protection of the purple-gold alms bowl, and the purple-gold alms bowl above their heads sprinkled a purple glow to protect themselves. It was as if they were invulnerable and cowardly. Fajing did not seem surprised by the arrival of the demonic sect. Seeing this, Fan Wu Jie thought, "It seems that everyone knows what the demonic sect is like. The masters are very well prepared." When the blood-soaked demon lord saw this, he was slightly disappointed. His face was full of smiles, and the excitement on his ferocious face and the hostility in his bloodshot eyes disappeared without a trace. His benevolent face was like a hypocrite again. He smiled and said to Master Fajing, "Master seems to have suffered a little shock in the Hall of Enlightenment. His old injuries are acting up, and it's not good. Moreover, this place is very dangerous. There are often horrifying monsters and evil followers with ulterior motives. I am very worried for you. Why don't you come to my place to rest for a while? That way you can guard against those people with ulterior motives." When Fajing saw the sincerity on the faces of the people from the fiend path, he could not help but curse. "You came so quickly because you saw that we were injured and couldn't wait to rush over. Isn't the greatest evil cult with unfathomable intentions and evil intentions the fiend path in all the worlds?" But on the surface, Fajing had to pretend to be calm. "They're just small fries, not worth mentioning. With this violet gold alms bowl on my head, I'm impervious to all dharma and all evils. My junior brothers and I will join forces to raise it and borrow the power of this connate numinous treasure to raise the great revolving sandalwood Buddha's light. No matter how the outside attacks, no matter how the devilish flames and nether flames wear us down, or how powerful dharma powers destroy us, it won't be able to harm us at all. What's there to worry about?" Master Fajing said with a calm smile. He looked at the group of demon monarchs and said with a hidden meaning, "We, the Buddhist dharma powers and supernatural powers, are the best at defense. When the demons come, even if we take advantage of the time, well, my junior brothers and I have lost a lot of dharma powers, we won't be able to last until we are exhausted and unable to hold on. Moreover, this place is full of danger. Unlike other places, who would dare to take such a huge risk and accompany me to spend dozens of yuan hui here?" Finally, Master Fajing added emphasis on the sentence dozens of yuan hui. Although the few demon monarchs knew that he was deliberately exaggerating, the supernatural powers of the Buddhist sect were indeed like a tortoise shell. If they wanted to force them to a dead end, they would have to put in a lot of hard work. The group of them took the risk to come to the depths of the ultimate in search of opportunities. They took great risks and usurped amazing benefits. Who would have the time to waste their origin and compete in endurance with a group of smelly and stubborn old monks? The blood-soaked demon monarch pondered for a moment before he suddenly squatted down beside the purple gold alms bowl and calmly said, "Grandmaster is right. But I brought my brothers out to make a living, and this is what we eat. Today, my brothers and I worked so hard to protect Grandmaster, to protect you from the disturbances of those unfathomable thieves. We worked hard for you. I admire your strength of character, but following my brothers, you can't go without food. Master, please consider our hard work. Give us 1 or 2 tales, so that I can explain to my brothers." The expression on Master Fajing's face stiffened. "Benefactor, are you asking me for a bribe? I'm begging for alms from you," the Shwetu king said sincerely. "Benefactor, I'm a monk. It has always been monks begging for alms from benefactors and benefactors giving to monks. There has never been a benefactor asking for benefits from monks. Fa Jing said calmly. Giving is just to make it easier for you to understand. In fact, we are asking for income from our labor, right? This is a righteous act of being protected by the demon ancestor. According to the rules of the underworld, we protected you to recover, so you should at least give us 2 or 3 taels, right? Take it as the cost of protection. If you don't give it, you have accepted our protection but are not willing to pay for our labor. What kind of behavior is this? Brothers, what kind of behavior is this? The Shuetu king pointed downwards and stood up. Humph. The group of demon monarchs let out a grunt that contained downward magic power in unison. They secretly took out their treasures that they were proud of. The Shuetu king knocked on the bamboo stick and said, Master, don't forget who forced you into this situation. That group of destruction demon disciples. Are the remnants of Rose still around? When we turn around and leave, if you happen to bump into that group of people, they won't be as reasonable as us. You are injured because your magic power is greatly weakened, but their injuries are close to the essence of destruction. They are like wounded beasts, more dangerous. Fa Jing kept his mouth shut. He knew that the Shuetu king was threatening him. If he did not comply, he would plot against them and bump into the Azura remnants of Ro. Now that they were injured, it was inevitable that they would be at a loss. It would be difficult for them to leave without leaving a trace. If the group of demon sect people were determined to plot against them, it would not be difficult to lure the Azura demons here. It would also be difficult for him to erase the traces and escape. Moreover, what the Shuetu king said was right. The more injured the destruction demon disciples were, the more dangerous they would be. The reason why the two sides did not join forces and eliminate the most dangerous force was because they were afraid that the remnants of Ro would die together with them. At the entrance of the Hall of Translucence, a towering figure came out from the hall. He was covered in injuries. One of his heads was torn off, and one of his arms was broken. He looked extremely miserable, filled with the smell of blood and slaughter. Although he was a corpse, Poya King's body still exuded a bloody spirit. The blood chi circulating in his body was slightly weaker, but it was stronger and more vigorous. It was as if the corpse had stretched out his muscles and bones. Although his appearance was terrible, his combat power had reached a new height. Fa Jing's expression changed, and he said, All right, then I'll tell you some things in exchange for your protection. These Azura demons want to enter the place where the Ro demon ancestor is sealed, which is also the core of the ruins of End, the Void. Their savior, the Ro demon ancestor. And if there really is an eternal and unchanging Dara heaven in the ruins of End, then it can only exist in the Void, in Ro's seal. If you want to break through the seal, you will need 3 things. The first is the ancient Nantoa ancient ant that lives in Hall of Translucence. The second is an extremely powerful killing treasure. The third is an extremely profound cultivation in algebra. Nonsense, the Shuetu king sneered. With just them, they want to save the Ro demon ancestor? Back then, Ro's old subordinates gathered all their strength and killed their way into the ruins of End, but they couldn't do it. How dare these defeated soldiers and a few stinky fish and shrimps dream of it? Don't forget, back then, Piaget and Vemakaitra led their army into the depths of the ruins of End and even barged into the Rose Seal. Even though they died in the end, they had barged into the depths of the ruins of End and met the Ro. They knew of some terrifying secrets of the ruins of End, so they left some backup plans for their subordinates and set up a trap to save the Ro again after the endless calamity. This is very normal. Great Master Fa Jing sighed. In reality, it was because we discovered some secrets left behind by the Ro subordinates that we got involved in this calamity. In that case, how did the Buddhists know about these? The Shuetu king seemed to be thinking about the truth of Fa Jing's words. The secrets hidden in the ruins of End run through the most ancient era of the primordial world and are extremely terrifying. This isn't a corner of the heavens that is neglected by the people, but a place where the eyes of the influential people are gathered. when the remnants of the road demon ancestor attacked the ruins of End. Who knows how many great divine arts practitioners were alarmed. Many people took this opportunity to lay down a chess piece in the ruins of End and led the Azura kings to barge into many forbidden lands that buried shocking secrets. In the end, it caused such a commotion that even old Ancestor River Styx had no choice but to take action personally to cut off the prying eyes of some people on the ruins of End. However, these secrets still ended up in the hands of some people. Fa Jing said faintly. The Shuetu king's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "The remnants of the road demon ancestor, the former subordinates of Poya, old Ancestor River Styx used the Blood Sea to trap them, but at the same time, he protected them. No one knew what old Ancestor River Styx intended to do, so they could only let them live in the Blood Sea of Calamity Eye. However, this stalemate was also broken by some people with ulterior motives. Therefore, Brahma Wu Jie, who had the karma of Dara Heaven, fell into the Blood Sea of Calamity Eye. This was not a coincidence, but someone with ulterior motives used his existence to allow the three religions to enter the Blood Sea of Calamity Eye and come into contact with the remnants of the road demon ancestor. Since the remnants of the road demon ancestor river Styx's Blood Sea protected them from the outside world, how did you know some of the secrets?" The Shuetu king was puzzled. Fa Jing lowered his head and fell into silence. On the other hand, Brahma Wu Jie, who was listening at the side, was drenched in cold sweat. Apparently, when he was connected to the karma of Dara Heaven, he had already caught the attention of some people. Because he attracted the attention of the three religions, someone wanted him to enter the Blood Sea of Calamity and come into contact with the remnants of the road demon ancestor. They wanted to activate the secrets of the endless calamity so that they could fish in troubled waters. Now, the people of the three religions had come into contact with the remnants of the road demon ancestor. Who knew if any of them had obtained some terrifying secrets? Were there really no pawns of the three religions among the remnants of the road demon ancestor? Because Brahma Wu Jie was connected to the karma of the three religions, he was used as a pawn to get in contact with the remnants of the road demon ancestor. At the same time, the remnants of the road demon ancestor were also used to promote the karma of the appearance of the Dara demon ancestor. It was almost impossible for Brahma Wu Jie to find the deepest part of the ultimate, which was the heaven of Dara. Even with the help of the three religions, the hope was still slim. Only the remnants of the road demon ancestor, who had been studying the seal of road demon ancestor since the beginning of the endless calamity, could he safely enter the deepest part of the ultimate, the land of nothingness. Yuan Yu suddenly said, "The information from the Buddhist League is very clear. You should know that not all the remnants of the road demon ancestor were sealed in the Blood Sea of Calamity Eye. There is still an old subordinate of road demon ancestor who is still free and unfettered." "Shimori," Brahma Wu Jie and the other demon monarchs exclaimed. "Originally, I thought that King Shimori was exiled to the primordial corroding Blood Sea because he was not valued by the demon ancestor of the river Styx. He was raised by his stepmother, or he was stuck between the demon ancestor of the road demon ancestor and the demon ancestor of the river Styx. Now, it seems that his identity was indeed awkward, but the real reason why he was not rewarded was because he knew too much. The demon ancestor of the river Styx had exiled him to the primordial corroding Blood Sea. To the side of his incarnation was actually to protect him, lest he was killed by some powerful beings who were unhappy that their secrets were exposed." Yuan Yu analyzed calmly. Only then did Brahma Wu Jie understand. So, the one who schemed against us to break the stalemate was also him. Because it was too hard for a person to bear such secrets alone. If he wanted to gain safety and freedom, he had to make sure that these deadly secrets no longer had the value of being kept a secret. That was why he used us to release the remnants of the road demon ancestor. "It's not that simple," the Shuetu king sneered. "I think he wanted to take advantage of us." The Shuetu king was using the thinking of the demon monarch to guess King Shimori's thoughts, and Brahma Wu Jie was speechless. The killing cult leader also calmed down. He knew clearly that the situation had become even more complicated. The secret of the heaven of Dara was already coveted enough. Now, there was also the secret of some great divinities hidden in the ultimate. The sect leader of the killing sect sensed a strong conspiracy. Almost instinctively, he sounded the alarm in his heart. "Old monk, just tell me, what secret do you know?" The group of Taoists from the Fiend League and the Buddhist League remained silent. Fajing remained silent for a long while, then sighed and said, "I only know that King Shimori has been crafting a supreme treasure of killing, and since the beginning of the Aeon Eons, he has been secretly working hard to imitate the 4 famous killing swords of the primordial era. He is replicating the 4 immortal slaying swords." The Shuetu king stood up in shock, and he was truly moved. What was he trying to do? At this moment, even Yuan Yu could not control his madly beating heart. Is he trying to snatch the number 1 killing treasure of the sect? Is Shimori out his mind? How can he touch this thing? Although Ajadi could still maintain his composure, his trembling hands, which were behind his back, had betrayed his true feelings. He was terrified. The 4 immortal slaying swords. How could they be touched so easily? If they were touched, many people would die. This was not an ordinary tribulation. The number 1 killing treasure in the post-historic era. How much blood had it been stained since it was born? When the 4 immortal slaying swords were born for the first time, Ro caused the first demonic tribulation in the prehistoric era. Many innate gods and celestial lord Dara died and reincarnated. Daozu, one of the 3 pure ones, subdued Ro and thus stood out. He guided Ro to the demonic soil and established the foundation of the Western sect. Ancestor River Styx schemed against Ro, so he stepped onto the stage of the prehistoric era as the orthodox Pangu and established the Panga demon path. Queen Hutu led the 12 witches to protect the people of the earth during the demonic tribulation and united them to establish the witches. Emperor Heaven, the primordial demon emperor, also relied on Ro to become famous in the prehistoric era and gathered a group of innate living beings and ancestral gods. The ancestral dragon ruled the 4 seas, and the phoenix commanded hundreds of birds. The Duke of the East, the Queen Mother of the West, Empress Wa, Empress Shi, and too many powerful cultivators had shown their prowess in this tribulation. It was easy to imagine what kind of bloodshed the 4 fairy-slaying swords had stirred up when they were in the hands of Luoho. After Ro was defeated, the 4 immortal slaying swords fell into the hands of sect leader Tongtian. When they appeared again, it was the great tribulation of the immortals, the war of deification. The Jie sect and the Chan sect fought each other to the death. The civil war of the Mystic Door almost cut off the luck of the 2nd generation of the Mystic Door. Countless mighty Dara died and reincarnated, or apatheicized. The influence did not disappear until the prehistoric era was broken. According to the legend, the 4 immortal slaying swords appeared for the 3rd time when the prehistoric era was broken. Someone once claimed that in the battle to seal Luoho, they had caught a glimpse of the 4 fairy slaying swords. Some said that sect leader Tongtian despised the 4 fairy slaying swords in the battle of deification, so he abandoned them and sealed Luoho. Some said that after Luoho shattered the untainted land, he attained the great Tao of destruction, and his power skyrocketed. The 4 fairy slaying swords were killing treasures that were compatible with the great Tao of destruction, so they automatically surrendered and fell into the returning ruins. Some said that as the first master of the 4 fairy slaying swords, the 4 fairy slaying swords had his imprint, so he could control them to surrender. Anyway, the most widely spread legend about the 4 immortal slaying swords, the number 1 killing treasure in the postnatal world, was that they finally fell into the ultimate. This scene was witnessed by countless mighty figures, so it was highly credible. Of course, these powerful beings couldn't tell if it was really the 4 immortal slaying swords. They could only sense an extremely terrifying aura that seemed to be able to extinguish all Taos and erase all living things. The 4 sword shadows fell into the ultimate ruin. If the legend was true, Then the 3 times the 4 immortal slaying swords appeared in the world. They triggered the devil tribulation of Ro, the war of deification, and the destruction of the prehistoric era. If this was the 4th time, what kind of tribulation would it cause? The falling of all heavens? The ultimate of all Taos? Nothing happens more than 3 times. The 4th tribulation caused by the 4 immortal slaying swords might be more terrifying than the previous 3 combined. It might be the end. The Shwetu sect leader's voice trembled. The 4 immortal slaying swords were originally Ro demon ancestors accompanying spiritual treasures. If Ro demon ancestor really summoned the 4 immortal slaying swords at the last moment before being sealed, then it might not be impossible for Ro to use it to break the seal. Everyone, be it the Buddha or the demon, fell silent. This topic was too taboo. You mean? Fan Wu Jia pondered and said, when Ro's old subordinates fought their way into the ultimate, they might have received instructions from Ro and grasped the method to use the 4 immortal slaying swords to break Ro's seal. They even had the ability to use a bit of the power of the 4 immortal slaying swords. As the only surviving Azura king, Shemoli naturally knew this, so he copied the 4 immortal slaying swords and wanted to use this opportunity to seize the sect's number 1 killing treasure. Ro was already sealed. If he could temporarily control the 4 immortal slaying swords through the means left by Ro, it is not impossible. Yuan Yu gasped and said, Shemo Li is so ambitious. The Shwetu king's voice interrupted, and he sat on the ground. Looking at Fajing and the other bald donkeys, he spat on the purple gold alms bowl and said, Bald donkeys, the pockmarks on your heads are not pockmarks. They are scams. You call this the reward for our labor? You know you are not confident. So you want to drag us down with you. So, Demon Monarch, what do you mean? The Shwetu king said with a sad face, I am a direct descendant of the River Styx demon ancestor, the Blood Sea Orthodox. Knowing that Ro demon ancestor wants to break the seal, what can I do? Do I have a choice? He turned and scolded his fellow demon sect Taoists. If any of you dares to run away or slack off, just wait for me to report you to the massacred demon ancestor. The River Styx demon ancestor has the Yuan-Tu sword in his hand and is using the killing calamity. Do you really think you can escape? If you don't do your best, then you are Ro's accomplice. Just wait for your death. It will not be easy even if you die. Don't forget, the Blood Sea River Styx might be in the Netherworld. The group of old demons who had just received the news and were a little absent-minded and distracted instantly perked up. The demon ancestor had his own way of controlling his subordinates, but none of the demons dared to take the Shwetu king's threat lightly. Chapter 1274. This is bad. Cold sweat broke out on Yuan Yu's forehead as he murmured in a daze. But then he forced himself to calm down. He had thought that it would be an easy task, but now it seemed that Ancestor River Styx had dug a big trap for him. The existence of Dara Heaven was meaningless to those who had become Dara. Therefore, the search for Dara Heaven had alarmed countless Taoists from the 3 religions, but none of Dara Heaven had appeared. But the 4 immortal killing swords were completely different. This was the first acquired killing treasure, one of the 2 most powerful treasures in the untainted land. It could be said to be the treasure of a religion, which could suppress a race and the fate of an era. There is no telling how many Grand Luo immortals would be tempted. Fajing had said that few knew of this secret, and the Buddhists had only stumbled upon it by chance because they had planted an undercover agent beside King Shimali. But Yuan Yu did not believe him at all. Shimali was the only person who knew of the secret buried deep within the ultimate. Though he had the protection of the Patriarch of the River Nether that allowed him to avoid many calamities, there were still countless eyes watching him. Could his secret be hidden? The Shwetu king sighed and said to the people behind him, Fellow Taoists, the only thing we can do now is to unite with the Buddhism League and fight to the death against the remaining Ro Heaven. Even if we can't kill them all here, we have to stop their plan to go to the place where Ro Heaven is sealed. In the purple gold alms bowl, Master Fajing stretched out his palm and opened it. There were 2 white ants lying on his palm. He said in a low voice, When the remaining Ro Heaven came, I felt the fear of these Nantoa ancient ants. I turned my sincerity into auspicious Buddhist light and invited these two little creatures to hide in my palm. They were afraid of the aura in the void, so I luckily brought them out. Ajadi pondered for a moment and took out an ancient 8 trigrams magical mirror as well. This is my 8 trigrams spirit turtle magical mirror. When the ancient witchcraft cult used the shell of a spirit turtle for divination, it accidentally produced the image of the 8 trigrams. Later on, the seniors of the witchcraft cult polished it into a turtle mirror. The Shwe-Tu king furrowed his brows and said, "Isn't this the old witch's treasure? Why is it in your hands?" The demon monarchs from the diabolism snorted coldly. The veins on the Shwe-Tu king's forehead bulged as he gritted his teeth and said, "He faked his death to escape again, didn't he? Sacrificing himself to create the incarnation of the destructive demon god. This old monster has lived for God knows how long. Although he claims to be the 8th cult master of the witchcraft cult, I've long suspected that he's the first cult master of the ancient witchcraft cult. He's been alive until now. He might be the only one who played the role of the cult master of the witchcraft cult. This old thing has eaten the elixir of immortality. Mount Wu has the emperor's elixir, the 8 monasteries, the yellow bird of Wu, the mysterious snake. I've forgotten about it. The witchcraft cult has the immortal herb. It's guarded by the 10 shamans of Mount Lingshan, namely Wu Xian, Wu Ji, Wu Pan, Wu Peng, Wu Gu, Wu Zhen, Wu Li, Wu Di, Wu Xie, and Wu Luo. They're all the antiques of the ancient witchcraft cult. All of them have consumed the immortal herb and lived until now. Among them, Wu Xian and Wu Peng are dare grand shamans. They're not inferior to the grand shamans who killed billions of descendants of Khanate life forms and made countless contributions in the war against the demon race. Later on, the witchcraft cult split into 3. They entered Dao, joined the demon race, and integrated into the human race. Wu Peng then led the branch that entered Dao into Dao and became the founder of the mystic door, Ancestor Peng. Wu Xian led 2 branches to seek refuge with the human race. One branch pledged allegiance to the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors and became their subjects. The other branch held the right to offer sacrifices and fought for power with the orthodox of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, the emperor of the human race. In the end, the political struggle failed. The part of the divine right that the witchcraft cult held was seized by the government. The ancient emperor became the supreme ruler of the divine right and was called the son of the emperor heaven. In the end, the branch of the witchcraft cult was divided into 2. One of them pledged allegiance to the ancient emperor. The one who was the descendant of the emperor heaven became the ancient emperor's subjects. The other part who lost in the struggle joined the devil path and lived in the barbarian land. They used the barbarian land that the ancient emperor could not enlighten to continue the Taoism. The blood-slaughtering demon master was no longer as irascible and reckless as before. After a round of analysis, his thoughts were clear and he had uncovered all the secrets of the demon cult. I know your background, but at the end of the day, the devil path is a group of losers who can't survive. Apart from the Blood Sea, River Styx, who has a good backer and has been prosperous ever since the primordial world was established, the other branches of the devil path, the Rose branch, is being hunted down by all the heavens. As for the other demonic branches, the Rahu clan is being hunted down by the heavens and is viewed as an enemy by the great mediums. Not to mention the fact that the Corpse Demon clan is the dregs of the netherworld that Patriarch Nether River rescued. They're trash rejected by the netherworld. The Yin Yang demon master sells their butts and their bodies. Yuan Yu's face darkened as he listened. He secretly clenched his fists. The shaman demon is the ancient witchcraft cult. They're the losers in the struggle for divine right. The spirit turtle treasure mirror in Ajadi's hand trembled and produced a clear, reluctant sound. The Een demon is the failed experiment of the ancestor river Styx. They're a second-rate substitute for the haunted ghosts. The old demons of the devil path who came from Een demon looked as if their own mothers had passed away. The old demons who secretly cultivated the sky-burning Een demon immortal body were also a little embarrassed The great Azura devil path is a traitor. Hoya-ji, who was fighting against some taboos in the distance, roared angrily. The heart demon is the mystic door, the trash can of the Buddhist sect. The demon monarch of the heart demon was very shrewd. He didn't care at all. He just sneered. The death demon tribe is the Netherhell's lackey. There was no demon monarch of the death demon here. Everyone smiled in agreement and tacitly slandered the death demon. The fiendish demons can't survive in the Archean Fey court. They were bullied so badly by the humans that they could only turn around and hug the legs of the demon ancestor river Styx. The Shwetu king opened his mouth wide. It was more than enough to piss people off when he said that the chests of a few old devils who were obviously not human rose and fell a little more violently. Sin demon, karma demon, walking demon, vexing demon, son of heaven demon. Forgive me for being blunt, but aren't they the Buddhist sect's lackeys? A bald demon monarch lowered his head, not daring to look at anyone. The others all glanced at him with a sense of superiority. The scene was immediately filled with a joyous atmosphere. They were even easier to bully than the Netherworld's lackeys, the death demon. Master Fodging and the others also turned a deaf ear. Their expressions clearly said, "This is the internal affairs of the devil path. The Buddhist sect will not interfere." Earth demons, when have you ever stopped listening to Her Highness Hutu? In the Earth demon tribe, even the words of the shaman demon carry more weight than yours. Another demon monarch was so shocked that he wanted to die. Ghosts, gods, and devils. There are many big shots, but they all belong to others. The truly powerful ghosts and devils are suppressed in the depths of the netherworld, and the truly powerful gods and devils form their own lineage. Even if I wanted to ride on their coattails, I couldn't. The demon monarchs of the ghost demon and divine demon tribe were very calm. After all, their existences were different from these down monarchs. They either served in the heavenly court or in the netherworld. As the heavenly court and the netherworld fell, they all lost their jobs. Currently, they were just trying to make a living in the devil path. The disease demon is doing quite well, but it's a pity that he can't be a pillar of support for the devil path. The disease demon tribe said, "You're the boss. What you say goes." The Yang demon and the realm demon are the same as the 5 demons. They're all dogs raised by others, but this time, it's the mystic door. The mystic door sure treats their dogs well. The Shwetu king stared at the demon monarchs of the 2 tribes. "I've been watching you for a long time, but I couldn't find any evidence of you leaking information to the mystic door. Of course, this doesn't mean that you're innocent. It's just that they've spent a lot on their own people. Their methods are much more brilliant than those stingy, bald donkeys." The 2 tribes didn't dare to say anything. They lowered their heads and admitted defeat. The Shwetu king and Ajati fought back against the demon monarchs one by one. No one dared to say anything. The Shwetu king fully demonstrated the chain of contempt within the devil path. The heavenly demon blood demon was the direct descendant of the river Styx, the biological sun. The massacre devil path and the red lotus devil path were the orthodoxies of Yuan-Tu's 2 noses and 2 swords. They were also the biological sons of the river Styx demon ancestor. However, they were the sons of a concubine and weren't as strong as the legitimate sons. The other demons, witches, and other demons lost in the war and had no choice but to join the devil path. However, they had a deep foundation and were powerful. They were similar to the disease demon, demon, heart demon, ghost demon, and other branches of the devil path, but weren't powerful enough. They were looked down upon by the 4 biological sons, but they could despise the middle class. They were the adopted sons of the river Styx demon ancestor. The Azura devil path was the snitch who followed the former demon ancestor row. They were the burden left behind by the former demon ancestor. They were looked down upon by their biological sons and adopted sons. Even if they were powerful, they wouldn't be respected. Finally, there were the trash that the other forces didn't want, and the devil path that served as a foil to their existence. They were the death devil, sin devil, karma devil, walking devil, annoyance devil, yang devil, and realm devil. They had a strong bloodline that served as a foil to the righteous path. They were looked down upon by the righteous path and weren't treated well by the devil path either. They were the children of the family that served the young masters. Fan Wujie and the people of the Buddhist path were watching from the side. He quietly pulled Yuan Yu's sleeve and whispered, "Which branch of the devil path does this Shui Tu king belong to? Why is no one daring to talk back when he catches them and scolds them?" Yuan Yu's face was dark. He rolled his eyes in annoyance and replied, "Guess it yourself." The Fan clan's third ancestor followed behind the Shui Tu king with a straight face, looking like a lackey. When he heard Fan Wujie's words, he laughed softly and said, "Of course it's the direct descendant of the demon ancestor, the Blood Sea branch." The Shui Tu king laughed coldly. Other than the Blood Demon branch, the Heavenly Demon branch, the Killer Demon branch, and the Red Lotus branch, these are the direct descendants of the demon ancestor. The other orthodoxies that belong to the devil path are either the trash of the righteous path or the losers of the battle. The devil path that has been passed down for thousands of years is supported by the Blood Demon branch and the Sky Demon branch. In front of us, don't laugh at your second brother. You're all trash. All trash. The Witch Master is a crafty person. When I saw how he was willing to sacrifice himself for justice, I had my suspicions. The witch cult has been passed down for a long time in the devil path. Although they created something like the devil god of destruction, to say that the Witch Master is dead, I don't believe it. The blood-soaked demon king said, "The sorcerer sect's attainments in the worship of gods and souls are unparalleled in the demonic path. The sorcerer sect wants to fake his death and transform into a strange state. Is there anyone here who can tell?" So I didn't think much of it. I'll just pretend that he's dead for now. But now, a dead person came out and pointed fingers at me, and even colluded with the Killer Demon branch. "What are you guys trying to do?" The Shui Tu king turned and shouted at Ajadi. Ajadi smiled and said, "Big brother Shui Tu, there's no point in saying it like that. Yes, the Witch Master is colluding with Shimori, but I'm not a part of it. They're just trying to rope me in. It's because of the Yuan-Tu sword." The Shui Tu frowned and said, "Yes, the Killer Demon branch is the direct descendant of the demon ancestor, and the Lifeless cult is the direct descendant of the demon ancestor. We've inherited the demon ancestor's murderous tribulation and supreme murderous orthodoxy. The Yuan-Tu sword is our treasure. We have a secret technique that can draw a trace of the power of the Yuan-Tu murderous sword. Although it's only a trace of the power of the Yuan-Tu sword hanging high above the chaos world, and it's far from the effect of controlling the murderous tribulation, it can still draw a billionth of this treasure's power." Ajadi said, "That's true. Without your help, Shimori wouldn't have been able to forge the replicas of the 4 immortal slaying swords. These 4 murderous swords are the number 1 post-celestial killing treasures. Even golden immortal Dara could stain them with his blood. How can a mere Azura king like him touch them? Even if it's just a replica, it's impossible. Unless he borrows a trace of the Yuan-Tu sword's power to forge the sword embryos of the 4 immortal slaying swords, and uses the common characteristics of the Yuan-Tu sword and the 4 immortal slaying swords to forge replicas of the 4 immortal slaying swords." The Shui Tu king knew the details of the slaughtering demonic path very well. "These 2 fellows with ulterior motives came to work with you. Isn't that asking a tiger for its skin? If you knew about the 4 immortal slaying swords, it would be strange if you let go of this opportunity." The Shui Tu king scoffed at Ajadi's character. Ajadi didn't feel ashamed. Instead, he said calmly they thought the same. So, after they pulled me into their trap, they wanted to get rid of me. Master Wu turned from the light to the dark and only left me the spirit tortoise mirror. He wanted to get out of my sight and let me deal with the trouble for them. That's a good plan. Yuan Yu was numb from listening at the side. "You bunch of juniors. You really have a lot of tricks up your sleeves. Even I, an old man, can't figure out what's going on. I thought this trip was really for the heaven of Dara. In the end, all of you started plotting against the 4 immortal slaying swords. The slaughtering demonic path definitely wants to use the power of the 4 immortal slaying swords to craft a sword embryo of an acquired spiritual treasure. I guess it's a replica of the Yuan-Tu sword." Shimori King used the Yuan-Tu sword Chi to replicate the 4 immortal slaying swords. The slaughtering demonic path also wants to use the power of the 4 immortal slaying swords to replicate the Yuan-Tu sword. This plan is quite ingenious. It's different from the wild imagination of plotting against the 4 immortal slaying swords. This plan really has a chance of success. The juniors nowadays are really impressive when it comes to plotting and scheming. Yuan-Yu thought to himself, "Luckily, I've hidden myself well. I'm an unprecedented 6-fold disguised hero. Now, I've only peeled off the second layer of my skin. There's still more to come. Our show is at the end. In this day and age, the more layers of disguise and the longer you hide, the more likely you are to have the last laugh. It's still too early for Ajadi to reveal himself. Look at the Shui-Tu King. Not only did he peel off your skin, he didn't reveal anything himself. He's still participating in the later part of the plan as a core member. When the time comes, he'll have a backup plan. Won't Ajadi lose some chances? Now that we have the Nantoa ancient ants, the spirit turtle treasure mirror, and the Yuan-Tu sword Chi, all of us know cosmic level escape techniques. We fulfilled all the conditions to enter the seal. Next, we'll fight to the death with the remnants of Ro. As long as we obtain the map inside the seal and fellow Daoist Fan Wujia, we'll have all the conditions we need for this trip. Not only can we enter the place where Ro is sealed and find the traces left behind by the 4 immortal slaying swords, we can even open the sky of Dara. Everyone has the chance to prove their Dao in Dara. So this time, our primary objective is to steal the plan and map from the remnants of Ro. The most perfect outcome would obviously be for us to annihilate the remnants of Ro and rid the universe of a great threat. The later part of the plan will be the same as before. Everyone will rely on their own abilities. The second outcome would be to steal the map inside the seal. Only we can enter Ro's seal. The worst outcome would also be our bottom line, to destroy the plans of the remnants of Ro. Even if we can't enter the seal, we definitely can't let them in. If they really have a way to activate the 4 immortal slaying swords and destroy the seal, allowing the demon god of destruction to break out, we'll all be sinners of the universe. Ajadi said sternly. The Shui-Tu King pointed at Ajadi with a cold smile. You're still hiding something. What is it? The group of demon monarchs turned to look at Ajadi. The Shui-Tu King bent his finger and said, the prototype of the acquired spirit treasure made by Yuan-Tu's sword energy, which is the replica of the 4 immortal slaying swords in Shimoli's hands. It only has a slight resemblance to the original, and it's not enough to complete Shimoli's plan. However, he still activated it confidently. This means that there's still a part of the plan, which is the trump card of the remnants of Ro. There must be something in Rahu's hands that contains the true essence of the 4 sword of execution. Only with that will Shimori's replica have the essence of both the true essence of the 4 sword of execution. Only with that will Shimori's replica have a slight chance of success. It's also because of this thing that you're all afraid of fighting with the remnants of Ro. You're afraid that they'll take out the real trump card and make Dara lose his life. That's why Shimoli and Master Conjurer hid in the dark. Otherwise, with Shimoli's body of Dara, even if we can push through, what can we do to him? You're just trying to trick us into going there, to consume their power and expose their trump card, so that you can take the chance to rob them. I've told you. I've already turned against them. Ajadi sneered and said, there's no trust between us. We're just using each other. On the contrary, you and I, because we're both disciples of the River Styx, there's still a bit of trust between us. You didn't even say anything about using us to consume the remnants of Ro's power. Fan Wu Jie said in shock. Yuan-Yu glanced at him and said, calm down, this is the basic operation of our diabolical league. From afar, a world-shaking boom came from the entrance of the Palace of Translucency. King Poya's dead body flew out of the entrance of the Palace of Translucency, forcing back the forbidden existence inside. The group of Diabolical League and Buddhist League old monks glanced at each other and reached a tacit agreement. Yuan-Yu sneered and came to the entrance of the Palace of Translucency, pretending that he wanted to steal King Poya's head that had been torn off. However, when he did that, he exposed a trace of space ripple. King Poya turned her head and looked at Yuanyu. Yuanyu stuttered, "Sorry for disturbing. I'm just passing by." He passed by the signboard of the Palace of Translucency, pretending to trip over the space warp where the builder tree was. The remnants of Ro who were riding on King Poya's dead body wanted to teach this troublemaker a lesson by squashing this old Taoist to death. However, Yuanyu's attention was drawn to the sprout of the builder tree. When he saw the two Nantua ancient ants crawling on it, he exclaimed, "Nantua ancient ants." He ignored Yuanyu, who was running away, and reached for the sprout of the builder tree. Poya Mo took out the skull of the Bo-Fu demon bird and prepared to keep the two Nantua ancient ants. On the other side, Monk Fajing saw Poya Mo reaching for the two Nantua ancient ants and said anxiously, "Fellow Taoist, why are you so reckless? If the remnants of Ro catch the two Nantua ancient ants, we won't be able to hold them back anymore." Then he was about to take out the purple gold alms bowl to stop them. The people of Diabolical League quickly went to stop him and said, "Those two ants are not that simple. Taoist 3 poisons is so evil. He is not reckless at all. He is a cunning old fox. Just wait and see what he is going to do." Chapter 1275. Poya Mo rode on Dara's corpse and opened her hand. Poya meant brave. At this time, Poya King's corpse was fighting with the forbidden existence in the Hall of Translucence. Although the Azura demon horde had used up more than half of their blood energy, the boiling blood energy had activated the stiff muscles and bones of Dara's corpse. The corpse was stiff because of the blocked blood energy. Burning the blood energy had broken through the stiff blood vessels, allowing Poya King's Dara avatar's battle prowess to increase instead of decreasing. Although the blood energy was not as strong as when it was at its peak, it could still circulate to the ends of the limbs. The originally dark skin became rosy. It could even use the battle techniques of Poya King when she was alive. In the past, Poya Ji's right hand carried the hope of the Azura demon horde and opened up a pure land in the Blood Sea. Now, she once again created a world with her hand. As it approached the builder tree sprout, the sky-covering hand shrank bit by bit. But every time it shrank, it would grow back. As a result, when Poyamakuo's hand reached for the sprout of the Jinmu tree, the sky-covering hand shrank to its normal size and stopped shrinking. Instead, it reached for the two grain-sized Nantua ancient ants on the surface of the sprout. Just SOSO. Poya Mo scanned with her divine sense and came to a realization. The space here is strange. It can actually contain a mountain like a mustard seed and shrink tens of thousands of miles like a house. It must be a restriction of the immemorial demon court that they used to plot against me. But His Majesty's Dara avatar is not as simple as it looks. The Dara avatar is filled with endless divine treasures. Wait! A trace of mockery flashed in the eyes of the demon monarchs. A demon that could force them to flee. How could it be so easy to deal with? Poya Mo reached out to the builder tree. Even though she kept activating her arcane energy to expand the sky-covering hand of the Dara avatar, when she was 3 feet away from the sprout, the sky-covering hand couldn't hold on any longer and started to shrink. Moreover, Poyamakuo's natural predator aura of the great talisman bird skull finally alerted the 2 little ants lying on the world tree sprout. The ants stare at the bright moon above its head. On the bright moon, at the entrance of a palace that seemed to be in ruins, stood a tiny person that was only a blacked. The little person looked down at the earth, stretched out a palm, and slapped towards the earth. Thus, the creatures on the land saw a huge hand that covered the sky coming down from a moon, and in the middle of the ethereal moon, the moon palace hung high. A plaque faced the boundless earth, and on it were 3 ancient demon characters. Hall of Enlightenment. As the hand got closer and closer to the ground, its volume also became larger and larger. It surpassed mountains, encompassed the sea, and finally reached the extent where it covered half of the continent. This continent was called the Pincer Continent, because according to ancient legends, this long and narrow continent was only the 2 pincers of an unimaginably large ant. Everyone in the Hall of Enlightenment looked from Hall of Enlightenment to the sprout of the builder tree, feeling that there was a world hidden in the sprout. Their reference was their own vision, and they felt that the sprout of the builder tree grew on the plaque of the Hall of Enlightenment, growing a world. But as long as they looked from the builder tree to the Hall of Enlightenment, they would find that the sprout of the builder tree didn't grow on the plaque of the Hall of Enlightenment. It was as ridiculous as the moon growing on the mouth of a well. Looking at the Hall of Enlightenment from the world tree, the huge Hall of Enlightenment was just a bright white palace that reflected the lustrous jade light. It hung high in the sky like a bright moon, and under his feet was a boundless land. The plaque of the Moon Palace was closest to the boundless land. The Moon Palace was very far from the land, but compared to the land, its volume was much smaller, much smaller. Yuan Yu and the others looked down at the builder tree at the entrance of the Hall of Enlightenment. In the eyes of the creatures on the builder tree, they were just ant-like gods overlooking the earth in the Moon Palace. Now, in the Moon Palace, a slightly larger god, as tall as the gate of the Moon Palace, slapped the earth with his palm. This palm grew with the wind, and finally turned into a huge hand that covered the sky and covered the earth. It looked like it was going to cross the long distance between the earth and the moon, slap the earth, and bring a disaster to the creatures on this continent. The creatures on the continent fled, struggled, and resisted in despair. The whole continent trembled because of this huge palm. The powerful primordial species, the strange creatures, the mountain-sized floating mountain dragons, stood in front of this gigantic hand, and their indestructible bodies were smashed into pieces. Countless mountains collapsed, and countless creatures perished. Under this palm, the entire continent was flattened. At this time, two huge pillars that supported the sky suddenly rose from the pincer continent. The two ants on the sprout of the builder tree raised their antennae. The huge palm that hit the pincer and destroyed all the creatures on it was like dust to them. The Nantawa ancient ant didn't care at first, but suddenly felt an extremely uncomfortable aura coming from the Moon Palace. When Poya Mo reached out her hand to the builder tree, her expression changed at first, but she quickly recovered. His divine sense swept out and probed into the void in front of the sprout of the builder tree. Only then did he see that the space he was in had suddenly warped inwards, forming a spherical warp. The surrounding space that extended all around suddenly closed at the edge. The huge Hall of Enlightenment was sealed into a circular planet. The entire space of the Hall of Enlightenment was only a small part of the builder tree. It was just a bright moon hanging on the builder tree. The spherical warp of the bright moon formed a special lens that allowed the line of sight of the moon to be magnified to the entire world. Thus, the original form of the entire world could be seen. The Hall of Enlightenment was not a world, it was only a part of this world. The sprout of the builder tree that they saw was the majority of this world. It was like standing on the moon and looking down at the earth. It felt like the earth was the mouth of a well. It was an illusion that the earth was only the mouth of a well. The huge palm awkwardly pressed on the Nantawa ancient ant's pincer. The Nantawa ancient ant shook its antennae, burrowed into the void, and opened a wormhole in the direction of the Moon Palace. Then, Yuan Yu and the rest's vision turned dark, and they saw a sky curtain that was even bigger than the Hall of Enlightenment rising in front of them. Even though they were riding on Poya King's incomparably huge corpse, the Azura demons couldn't help but gulp in front of this incomparably huge Nantawa ancient ant. Fajing actually felt pity for the remnants of Ro. He patted the two little things on his body, and suddenly wondered, are they really the same species? Could the differences between the individuals of ancient species reach such a degree? Nan, Nantawa ancient ant. The green-haired zombie's legs trembled, and he said, Nantawa ancient ant, is it that big? Shut up. Poya Makuo snorted coldly. We haven't lost yet. King Poya's right palm could lift up a continent and open up a pure land in a dangerous place, because there was a world between his palms. That was why he could shackle the shards of Daiyu Divine Mountain, and even break off a Xianming bone spur to open up a palm continent that could block out most of the destructive power of the calamity. However, this was only a manifestation of Poya Ji's Dara, divine treasure. Poya Ji was still Dara, who walked the chaotic devil path of Ro. His power was filled with destruction and ominous. He could open up a world with a raise of his hand, but the essence of this world was still illusory, temporary, and even fragile. This kind of divine art that opened up a world with a raise of his hand was for the next step, which was to destroy the fragile world with a flip of his hand. When the illusory existence was destroyed, the incomparable power of the embryonic form of destruction would erupt. Therefore, Poya Ji's complete attack was to raise his hand to strike out the embryonic form of a world, to shackle the enemy in that illusory small world. Then, with a flip of his hand, he would completely destroy the fragile and temporary small world in his hand. Using the power of the world's destruction, he would activate the destructive power of the calamity and strike out a destructive attack, destroying the world in his palm along with the enemy. Before Poya Ji had opened up a pure land in the sea of blood, a safe pure land that could withstand countless catastrophes, he had probably never truly tried to maintain this power of creation. The reason why he created this kind of divine art that could open up a world was because of the great destructive power that would erupt the moment his creation was destroyed. When Poya Ji was drowned in the sea of blood, he was able to break through the torture of the calamity power of destruction and open up a truly independent world. In fact, he had borrowed the power of the Shinming Bone Spur and the fragment of Mount Daiyu in his palm. The Shinming Bone Spur pierced through King Poya's palm and broke the second half of King Poya's world-destroying divine art, while the fragment of Mount Daiyu maintained the illusory world that was on the verge of collapse. One of them was like a rock that blocked the second half of the divine art and held up the entire world like a fulcrum. The other one broke the second half of the divine art and nailed it to the right moment. Although the Shinming Bone Spur had been removed from King Poya's palm, giving his right hand the possibility to perform the second half of the divine art, Mount Daiyu is still stuck in the illusory world, the only real fulcrum. If he could not destroy the fragment of Mount Daiyu and this fulcrum, King Poya's corpse would never be able to perform the second half of the divine art. But if Mount Daiyu failed to withstand the attack, King Poya might be able to perform the second half of the divine art. The Pure Land that had been stable for countless catastrophes and the fragment of Mount Dai, you might be able to perform an earth-shattering attack, even surpassing King Poya's strongest power when he was alive. Because this was actually the first half of King Poya's most powerful divine art before he died. After accumulating countless catastrophes, the power of the second half of the divine art had been automatically born. By then, everything in the Pure Land in his palm would become the nourishment for that world-destroying attack. It might even be able to produce the true, final solution of Tao. However, the fragment of Mount Daiyu is still suppressing the embryonic form of the world-destroying attack. So Poya, Mo, couldn't perform the second half of the divine art. However, Yuan Yu had reason to believe that this was one of the trump cards of the remnants of the Ro clan. Now, Poya Mo could only borrow the vast power of the world in King Poya's palm to transform it into a divine art to imprison the target in her palm. That complete form of the divine art should have contained the ability to create a world with the raise of a hand and destroy a world with the flip of a hand. However, it was stuck between the first half of the form evolving into the second half. It had evolved into a supreme divine art that could confine a great world, borrowing the power of the world in his palm to suppress the enemy. With a swing of his hand, it wasn't as simple as the strike that Buddha had used to suppress Monkey Sunday. How could two Nantoa ancient ants escape from this level of Dara divine art? After this attack, Poya Mo calmed down and thought to himself, got it. He was confident that if this attack wasn't aimed at his biggest target, the Nantoa ancient ants, it would be enough to kill anyone here. If the Nantoa ancient ants weren't an important factor in his plan, he wouldn't have wasted this chance here. This attack was already the full power of King Poya's Dara conjured body. This consumption was even greater than when he had controlled the corpse to fight the forbidden existence for so long. With this attack, 80% of the blood and chi of Dara that they had sacrificed their boundless tribulations had been used up. At most, they would only be left with the power of one last attack. However, Poya Moqo felt that it was worth it. This attack had pried up the power of the world in the palm, giving it another heavy kick to the world that was already on the verge of collapse. Now, the world in the palm that had protected them from the boundless tribulations was on the verge of destruction. With one last attack, the destructive tribulation power would naturally change and crush the fragments of Daiyu Divine Mountain. Then, the second half of the divine art would be unleashed, and the strongest attack King Poya's corpse had ever unleashed. It could be said that when Dara used his full power, it could crush everything in its path. Compared to the fiend cultists of destruction, the Rahu remnant's final form of Tao disintegration was countless times more powerful. It was a strike that could truly threaten a Grand Luo, and even kill a Grand Luo avatar. In the heavens, this Nantoa ancient ant was already an unimaginably terrifying monster. Even so, before the greatest power of all worlds, the Grand Luo, the inconceivable power of such a frightening body was nothing. Brahma Wu Jia had seen with his own eyes the power of a world as the skull of the talisman count bird turned into a cage, imprisoning the unimaginably colossal Nantoa ancient ant. At this time, King Poya's conjured body had used up all of its energy and could not adjust itself anymore. However, with the defense of Ro's corpse, the group of demon monarchs could not find a chance to attack. After a few breaths, King Poya had used up all of her techniques. She raised her blood chi again. The Nantoa ancient ant could not break free from the restraints of the talisman bird's chi and Dara. Although King Poya's conjured body only had one last attack left, it could still unleash the final Tao at any time. Facing this trump card, no one would be able to break free. So this is your second trump card. Yuan Yu said in a low voice, you should have 3 trump cards, the thing that contains the essence of the 4 immortal execution swords, the final Tao of King Poya's corpse. Each of these cards is enough to threaten Dara. No wonder Shemo Li did not dare to attack. Then the last trump card is, it should be now. Yuan Yu thought, if Shemo Li wants to attack, now is the best time. But Poya Moqo should also be waiting for this chance. The last trump card might have been prepared for this moment. Yuan Yu secretly held onto a jade talisman and prepared to activate the secret signal that they had agreed on. However, the moment King Poya's conjured body captured the Nantoa ancient ant, a confident smile appeared on his face. He had secretly prepared an item. Meanwhile, the other Azura and demon monarchs were carefully watching out for the movements of the demon monarchs and Buddhist monarchs to prevent them from interfering. Now that the demon monarchs and Buddhist monarchs were powerless to interfere with the development of the situation, Yuan Yu prepared trump card. Ro's corpse played a small king card. King Shemo Li was temporarily useless, but there were still 2 bombs secretly prepared. At this crucial moment, Poya Moqo's face suddenly showed a trace of astonishment and disbelief. King Poya's corpse flipped its hand and caught the Nantoa ancient ant. The giant ant was caught in King Poya's hand and was suppressed by the destructive tribulation power and the fragment of Daiyu Divine Mountain. But at this moment, the god contained in the living blood in King Poya's heart suddenly died. The living blood was turned into corpse blood by a strange poison. King Poya's lifelike corpse instantly turned green and black. This backlash followed the inexplicable connection that Poya Moqo had formed with the god she sacrificed to. It attacked Poya Moqo's body, causing him to be heavily injured. At this time, a person came to Poya Moqo's side and easily captured him. Poya Moqo looked at that person with an expression that could not be described with words. It's you. It's me. That person smiled faintly. Green corpse hair fluttered in the air. It was Fan Wu Jie and Yuan Yu's old acquaintance, the green-haired corpse. How could it be him? So it's him. Fan Wu Jie and Yuan Yu were either stunned or suddenly realized what was going on. As a grand heavenly immortal, she hid an immeasurable tribulation among a group of pitiful worms in the blood sea extremity. Poyamatsu's loss was not unjustified. Yuan Yu's tone was eerie, and it carried a trace of terrifying coldness.